everyone, and welcome back to the day 2 of Ctrl+S Culture, AI and Heritage in a Digital World. For those of you who are joining us today, my name is Aparna Tandon. I'm a senior program leader at ECROM and the manager of both Sustaining Digital Heritage and First Aid and Resilience for Cultural Heritage in Times of Crisis program. It's a pleasure to host you again as we continue our journey through the dynamic and rapidly evolving intersections between artificial intelligence and cultural heritage. Yesterday, we explored how AI is transforming documentation, conservation, management, and storytelling within the domain of cultural heritage. The presentations demonstrated that AI is no longer an abstract possibility. It is already reshaping how we sense, document, and safeguard cultural heritage across different regions. Today, we turn our attention to decoding heritage, how AI can help us read, interpret, and make sense of visual, spatial, linguistic, and material heritage. How do we ensure that these emerging tools remain inclusive, ethical, and grounded in local knowledge? We invite you to stay engaged throughout the day, exchange actively, and use the chat Q&A to share your questions and reflections. As you perhaps already have read, this conference is organized by ECROM's Sustaining Digital Heritage Initiative in collaboration with First Aid and Resilience, Youth Heritage and Africa programs, and it has been held in partnership with Flanders AI Academy and CFAL York, part of the UNITAR network, and AVP. We are grateful to these distinguished partners, as well as our speakers who bring such rich expertise and diverse perspectives to this conference. Today's sessions are designed to deepen our collective reflection, spark dialogue across disciplines, and help us imagine future-oriented, ethical, and resilient approaches to digital heritage. Thank you for being part of this gathering. We look forward to your active participation and the insights you will share as we begin day 2. Please do remember to stay on for the Ctrl+S Cafe, which will be a reflection and networking event at the end of today's proceedings. We invite you to stay engaged and exchange actively, but also keep your questions for the cafe already written out so that we can have a very rich discussion. Sharing some house rules again. The host has enabled a setting where participants can only unmute upon request. So you can either raise hand or write in the chat and ask to unmute. But that is to ensure that our speakers have the time and space to share their presentations without interruptions. Use the Q&A box to type your questions at any time, or use the raise hand function, and host will unmute you when it is your turn to speak, as I've already said. Feel free to keep your camera on, but it is completely optional. Sometimes if you find yourself having issues with internet connectivity, turning your camera can help. And if you still are experiencing technical issues, please send a direct message in the chat to our support team and we will assist you. This session is being recorded and the recording may be shared with registered participants. And we will also use some of this content to later on illustrate our conference proceedings. By staying in the meeting, your consent to be part of this meeting is assumed. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first session of the day, AI as a tool to understand communities' preferences in heritage sites. This panel will be moderated by Dr. Xiaozhao Liang from Politecnico di Torino. This panel will explore how AI can help capture and interpret how communities experience and value heritage sites, and what this means for planning, design, and participation. Dr. Liang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. Welcome to this panel. academic roundtable also. I am the moderator. I am Xiaoxu Liang. I'm from Department of Architecture and Design at Politecnico di Torino. Today, the topic of our panel is called AI as a tool to understand communities' preference in heritage sites. And I'm excited to explore the big questions around AI, culture, and heritage management with all my colleagues, Professor Bainan and Dr. Yuting Jiang, Yan Zhou, and Xinchen Li. I will introduce them later in after the overview of this panel. And we are very excited to explore the big questions around the AI here to share our opinions with everyone. This panel focuses on how AI can help identify and interpret communities' preferences and values about heritage. And it will introduce the methodological applications of AI, including natural language processing, machine learning, and geospatial analysis to evaluate a diverse form of community input, such as surveys, social media data, and participatory records. Through selected case studies, the presentation will demonstrate how computational approaches can highlight patterns of engagement, values, and expectations associated with heritage assets. The discussion will also address the methodological and ethical considerations of applying AI in this field, particularly regarding transparency, representation, and the integration of digital tools with established participatory practices. Our key speaker is Professor Bainan. He's an associate professor, very young, scholar from Department of Architecture, DU Delft. And his title of presentation will be Sensing the Cultural Significance with AI for Social Inclusion. And there are three presenters. They are all PhD students. The first one is Yuting Jiang from Polytechnical and Tongji University, Shanghai. Yan Zhou from TU Delft, and Xinchen Li, also from Architecture Heritage Program, Politecnico di Torino. Please, everyone, stay engaged and feel free to join to give us questions after each talk. We will have a lively discussion. Thank you. Now I will give the floor to Professor Bainan.
Hi, everyone. I'm really delighted to be the first speaker of the second day of this conference. As Dr. Liang introduced, I'm assistant professor from TU Delft. Today, I will tell you a story of my research in the past 6 years about sensing the cultural significance with AI and social media for social inclusion. I will start my story with my personal social media post in 2019. For those of you who don't know any Chinese, I kindly translated it for you. So I think a lot of us still remember the day when Notre Dame Paris was on fire. So I was posting on my personal social media about my grief and my sadness about that, my shock about it. And not only I was, but also people from all over the world are using all kinds of social media platforms to post about it during the event, after the event, and also about some proposal for redesigning the Notre Dame de Paris. But we also know that currently it's reopened, so people are constantly posting about it throughout the process. If we have a look at 4 major sites just around the time of the fire, we can see they share almost this similar trend on Google Trends and the similar interest of the whole internet. But if we add Notre Dame de Paris into the search, we'll find that all the discussion are diminished into a level that's not so significant compared to Notre Dame. So we can borrow the term from neurology or biology that we can call the above term as the baseline and the other one as the activated. So the first one are regarding the ordinary or everyday scenario when people are just constantly posting things about the places that they visit or sharing some treasures of the things they are having in the city they live in. But when there's some event happen, the whole discussion will be activated, and that will trigger lots of tension around the world. And in my own research, I use Twitter and now X and collected data around the time of the fire. And we were able to reproduce the same temporal pattern on Twitter as the same as the one on the Google trend. But not only temporally, we also map that spatially and to show that the discussion really reached the world during the event. And there was really a concern of people all around the world globally. And even after 1 week of the fire, people were still constantly posting about that. So the question of really my research is about, should we or can we make use of the massive information on social media as well as emerging artificial intelligence technologies and contribute that knowledge from there to better or make more inclusive cultural heritage management practices? The answer is, of course, yes. Otherwise, we won't be here today. And compared to the very traditional or the conventional way of reviewing heritage or world heritage from the expert perspective, the recommendation on the historic urban landscape published in 2011 asked for more alternative or inclusive narratives for heritage. They explicitly ask for civic engagement tools and knowledge planning tools that will have different perspectives from the stakeholders recorded and analyzed. And I just argue that social media and artificial intelligence are actually emerging tools that can already function as such, tools being called. As a group in TU Delft, we are also a UNESCO chair on heritage and values. We usually care about two concepts. One is heritage values. It is about why people conserve certain heritage, and heritage attributes about what to conserve for this site. And also there's an umbrella term of the two, which is outstanding universal value in the specific term of World Heritage. It is about why and what to be conserved at UNESCO World Heritage. Usually what we do is we will use the qualitative decoding of 8 different types of heritage values and look at the policy documents or social media posts and mark it manually and to see why are people mentioning certain aspects. And I can use the same method to code my own social media post. And you see, I care about the history of the human civilization and also the immortal has just fallen, I have argument. So this might be related to the UNESCO OUV selection criteria 3 about testimony and the criteria 6 about people's association. So I can do that for my own post. But if we want to look at the whole entire world, there's tons of posts that it will be impossible for me or any other researchers to just do it manually. So that is where the AI can come into place. I started with a whole list of UNESCO World Heritage, and for each of the heritage property, there are some description on why is this World Heritage. So there is a justification file about the selection criteria of OUV. So I actually managed that into a dataset and created a multi-class classification problem. So then we can have a dataset that is made from a World Heritage and can be used for infer heritage values or OUV to be specific. And at that time, in 2021, I used the state-of-the-art model at that time, which is the BERT by Google, and train a model on the dataset. And I got pretty similar codes that I can have right now with the personal coding. So the model was able to reproduce that it might be about criteria 6 and 3 with certain probability. And using the same method, I collected data and analyzed the social media posts in 3 different cities, Amsterdam, Suzhou, and Venice, and also use computer vision methods to also categorize the images collected from social media posts on Flickr. But just randomly analyzing the post wouldn't help, because if we look at the social media posts collected from Venice, for example, it is still manageable to understand what is happening if we have around 5,000 posts. But if that goes to 80,000, it is another challenge that we cannot understand it again. So using the first law of geography, that everything is related to everything else, but near things are more related than distant things, I use the different types of similarity in spatial, temporal, and social terms to group the social media post into the spatial node that is around the post, and summarize the heritage values and attributes information of that. And the final outcome is something like this, which are actually maps where policymakers and normal people can also understand where are the hotspot and hotspots of different certain types of heritage values and attributes in the space. And before I end my presentation, I would love to go back to Notre Dame once more. So instead of just collecting it on the spatial temporal scale, I also zoom into the semantic topic using AI with the specific term called bird topic. And we can also break down the peak of discussion into different topics. About some people were reporting on the fire, but someone are also mentioning the historic values or after a certain period of time after the fire. Specifically, we had another round of discussion with rebuilding and research from Professor Andrew Taylor with 3D scanning of Notre Dame, and that also reached some certain peaks on the social media. So the next step of the research is, of course, since we have the tool, we can also maybe apply it at a global level on many other more World Heritage sites and World Heritage cities to see if that can also help. But also, open access or open science is also very important in our field. Since AI is also everywhere, we might also want to share the knowledge with the people. And something to end, this is very important, interesting observation. When I did my PhD defense, I had this trial in 2023. I asked ChatGPT the question, what OUV selection criteria can you observe from the sentence that I have on my own social media? It gave me quite nonsense. I asked for one answer, and it gave me a lot of sentences which I cannot use to analyze the whole thing. But I asked it again, the cloud, in this year in July, the same question, and now it also gave me similar answers that I expect, also from the bird model that I trained, and also as an expert myself. So it seems that large language models are also evolving to a state that it starts to understand what heritage is and what heritage values is. So maybe it is also a time for us to embrace and use it a little bit more consciously in our research on how to use large language model. And of course, we are not I'm not the only one in the team working on the similar topic. We still have a lot of people in the team working on why, how, and what about heritage at TU Delft. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion, and thanks for the attention. And please reach out to me if you feel certain things are relevant for your research. Thank you.
Thank you, Nan, for the insightful presentation. Now we will move to the next speaker, Yuding Jiang, who will focus on heritage education assisted by AI tools. Later, after all the presentations, we will have like around 15 minutes for question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Yuting. I'm from Politecnico di Torino and Tongji University. Very happy to join this conference. Today, I want to share our research of education process of cultural heritage. With the rise of digital transformation, new tools are reshaping how heritage is being taught, communicate, and experienced. They provide immersion, interactive, and accessibility. Yet, opportunities came with challenges. Many digital platforms simplify cultural contents for quick consumption, which weaken the depth and authenticity. Learners are often treated as consumers, not participants, limiting their contribution to cultural memory. And the digital divide still marginalize older people, people with disabilities, and underserved communities. This study addressed a key gap by critically examining how digital technologies support participatory learning. Against this background, our study focuses on these three questions in order to understand how digital technologies support participatory learning. To answer those questions, we conduct a systematic review of 114 Scopus articles using Sitespace. We traced research trends and we developed an assessment framework grounded in 5 participatory learning dimensions: engagement, collaboration, co-creation, personalization, and inclusiveness. Our findings show that digital heritage education has evolved through 3 phases. First, visualization. Early tools such as Google Earth focuses on documentation and visual storytelling, offering limited interaction. Second, interaction. With the rise of VR and AR after 2015, these techniques enable more interactive, learner-centered application like visual tours and AR games, and learners could explore and play. And third, co-creation. Since 2020, driven by the COVID-19 pandemics and emerging technologies such as AR, XR, AI tools increasingly enable collaboration, personalization, and share authorship. There are 8 mainly used tools. Different tools show distinct strengths and limitations. Immersive technologies like VR and AR create powerful engagement and experimental depth, but they often exclude due to cost or accessibility issues. MOOCs and mobile apps reach wide audience and support flexible learning, but they lack collaboration. Serious games foster motivation and creativity, yet their integration into formal education remains limited. No single tool covers all 5 dimensions. A blended approach combining complementary tools is more effective. And challenges still remain. Many tools still fail to ensure accessibility for marginalized groups, and mechanisms for co-creation are underdeveloped, and evaluation often focuses on usability rather than deeper educational value. In conclusion, as digital tools continue to transform the education process for cultural heritage, participatory learning fosters inclusive experience that not only deepen emotional engagement, but also extend cultural connections beyond the screen. Looking forward, AI and semantic technologies are beginning to transform this field. They can provide personalization, real-time feedback, and intelligent content delivery. but they also pose risks. Cultural biases in algorithms over automation and high resource demands. Accessibility must become a central goal for heritage education. AI has the potential to expand access through adaptive interfaces, translation, or multimodal interaction. Second, the construction of heritage data should not be limited to experts. Greater public participation in data collection and modeling can itself be a form of learning, making the entire process more participatory. In short, digital tools are transforming heritage education, and the future of heritage conservation lies not in the autonomy of machines, but in the continual loop of human input and sense making. Thank you for listening, and that's all. And if you have any interest, please, you can connect to me. Thanks.
Great presentation. Thank you, Yiting. Now, Yanzhou, it's the floor to you. Please start your presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me in this panel discussion. I'm Yanzhou, a PhD student from
I'm sorry, I think you have to make your volume higher.
Okay. Yeah. Today, my presentation title is Decoding the Networks of Diasporic Heritage, Computer-Assisted Identification of Cultural Heritage Significance from Social Media. The identification and assessment of cultural significance have been well recognized as an essential step in cultural heritage conservation and management. Recently, this indispensable step has been already benefited from the development and application of new data-driven approaches, where more quantitative data and methods have been incorporated into enhance the efficient and comprehensive understanding of cultural heritage. The topic I share today is a question that I developed when I tried to analyze the cultural significance of diasporic heritage. I find that there's a lack of comprehensive tools for classifying cultural significance at different levels. For example, the heritage attribute categories, the subcategories, and local representations and interrelations. And also, when it comes to the diasporic heritage, this heritage is related to the heritage created and maintained by diasporic communities and migrants. And this heritage is very related to both the influences from local and transnational heritage sites or heritage attributes. And then I found that there's a lack of data-driven approaches that help to collect and map those diasporic heritage-related data. For example, diasporic poles and folds and the interrelations, and also the lack of attention on both locally valued attributes and transnational influences. So my research tried to bridge this gap by decoding the cultural significance of diasporic heritage into the valued attributes and also the relationships with origins and destinations. Then I tried to build our understanding through the network analysis. So we developed a pipeline for recognizing, mapping, and identifying the local and transnational cultural significance of diasporic heritage from large-scale textual social media data. And the main methods are named entity recognition and hierarchical multi-label classification, and also network analysis to visualize all the relationships. I used the Chinese diasporic heritage in the Netherlands as a case study, which I collected data from Flickr, the social media platform, and collected through keyword searching and have a database for that. And then in this pipeline, a very important part is the hierarchical multi-label classification model. This model has 3 layers and also 3 main categories with subcategories after it. Then using this hierarchical learning model, we can classify the heritage significance into valued attributes, into different pixel levels of attributes. And then this model is actually consists of 10 model stages, which ensure the learning between the different layers. Through this method, we are also improve the model precision and also recall for the model. And then using this model, we are able to analyze the heritage attributes from 3 cities in the Netherlands that have the most density of Flickr posts related to Chinese diasporic heritage. From these graphs, we can see that not only the intangible attributes within are very obvious, like the previous research has noticed, but also we can find that there are also many intangible elements are related to tangible attributes, which previous research is not that pay attention to. So using this graph, we can finally understand what kind of relationships that different heritage attributes can be related to the built environment and at the city level. And however, these heritage attributes are all local. And social media posts also mention a lot of connections with the origin places of Chinese diasporic communities. So using named entity recognition combined with the classification model, we further document the heritage attributes that have transnational influences. From these graphs, we can see what kind of attributes are more localized and what are under influence by the origin places and from where. So here are some takeaways. This study develops a pipeline for recognizing, mapping, and identifying the local and transnational cultural significance of diasporic heritage from large-scale social media data. And then named entity recognition, hierarchical multi-label classification, and network analysis are used as main methods. And this approach enables our understanding of cultural significance beyond the previous territorialized heritage narratives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yenzhou. And it's very interesting research, I'd say. And I know that you're from the same team, Professor Bainan. I have some questions for you, but I would keep them later. Let's welcome Xinchen Li to present her research. Thank you.
Okay, can you see it? No? What? Is it okay? Okay, and good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Li Xinchen from Polytechnico di Torino. And first, thank you, Professors Liang and Professor Bai, for organizing this panel. And I'm very happy to be here today. And in this talk, I'll briefly introduce my review on the application of machine learning in cultural heritage conservation from 2011 to 2025. And this study examined how machine learning, including deep learning, has evolved over the past 50 years with a particular focus on heritage science and conservation practice. In recent years, artificial intelligence have advanced rapidly, and many powerful and general-purpose AI models have emerged. At the same time, cultural heritage is generating increasingly complex and diverse digital data, creating a strong demand for automated analysis and decision-making tools. And this development together provide an important opportunity for machine learning to enter the field of heritage conservation. And most existing review focus on a single task or technique or technology like damage detection, structural monitoring, or point cloud processing. And like the overall landscape of this domain. And so heritage work inherently involves multi-data type, diverse tasks and varied application scenarios. And for this reason, I believe that a more systematic cross-task and cross-technology perspective is needed, and which is also the motivation behind my research. And based on this, the aim of this research is to build a systematic and integrated framework that connects the data types, AI technologies, and specific conservation tasks involving cultural heritage. With this objective, several key research questions have been proposed. And to achieve this, I use a combination of bibliometric analysis and natural language processing. The workflow includes literature collection and screening, followed the Prisma process, and followed by the next main stages of analysis and evaluation. And I applied several techniques, including social network analysis, keyword occurrence analysis, and top modeling. And I first examined the publication trend from 2011 to 2025. The number of studies shows a steady increase with a clear acceleration after 2018. And the years 2020 to 2024 represent the exponential growth with more than 600 publications in total. And at the country level, I analyzed the top 15 most productivity countries. Italy had the highest number of publications, followed by China and India. But high productivity does not necessarily mean early involvement. The UK, US, Spain, and Greece became active much earlier in the early 2010s, showing a clearly distinction between early starters and high output countries. And geographically, research activities are strongly clustered in Europe, with diffusion towards Asia and North America. In terms of cooperation network, Europe and North American, and Europe and to Asia form two major collaboration corridors, and several country pairs act as important cross-regional hubs. Overall, this reflects a highly globalized research landscape in AI and cultural heritage conservation. And use some tools, I generated a visual keywords co-occurrence network to reveal the thematic structure of machine learning and deep learning research in cultural heritage. Several clear clusters can be identified. For example, the right cluster centered on deep learning and convolutional neural network is mainly associated with visual tasks like classification, detection, and segmentation. And the green cluster is linked to traditional machine learning methods like random forest and SVM, which are often used for structure monitoring, material analysis, and point cloud processing. And for topic modeling, as shown on the right, recognition-related topics make up the largest proportion of our research. And this includes tasks like classification, identification, detection, and feature extraction. And it has grown rapidly over the past decade, making recognition the most active research direction in this field. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Xinchen.
Thank you.
Thank you for all those four presenters. And you all did very interesting researches. And personally, I am also working on the social media data and heritage management for since I am doing my doctoral research. And I'm also interested in this machine learning tools in heritage studies, and also Yuting Jiang, she's from my research group. She's focusing on heritage education and so on. I have some questions for Professor Bainan and also for other people. The first question is that what do you think are the biggest methodological or, let's say, ethical challenges you foreseen for AI in the heritage studies over the next 5 to 10 years? And there are Moga, like he asked the question, like I make it shorter, like how can researchers collaborate with city planners and archaeologists and the community groups to co-create AI tools for like heritage inclusion? I think I hope I understand well. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe I can start a little bit of the discussion. So I think one of the major challenge for us is the transparency and both on the models, the use of the AI, and also on later reporting of things, because now AI is almost everywhere and people are using the ChatGPT and other kind of large language model at daily basis. But it's also really important for these big companies and technology to be transparent enough for the researchers and daily users to understand how to interpret the results. And otherwise, we're just blindly believing in those kind of technology. And also, on the other way, we do need some transparency in reporting and also in making our research open access, and also just learn from the computer science community and make our data open access, make our methodology open science, and then that will benefit also large more people without sacrificing any privacy issue of the users. So that are the two major things. And also we know that from the researcher who developed the ImageNet, Li Feifei, she was also mentioning recently that the future of AI lies in spatial AI, which also has a lot to do with our community in heritage conservation. So we might also see development, vast development in that area.
Thank you. I see someone is raising his hand. Patrick, I'm not sure how can I.
Yes, I'm Tradi from Malawi. My question is on how can AI help to bridge digital divide in heritage access, or will it widen existing gaps, especially from remote communities and illiterate population in terms of consumption, acknowledgement, distribution, pass down of heritage in less technological access or less advanced communities? For non-users of technological gadgets such as lack of phones, lack of laptops, and other accessible digital heritage materials.
Thank you.
Okay.
Like,
I think it's always a challenge for, thanks for the question. I think it's always a challenge for people to include the people from these technological difficulty, and there's always an imbalance or inequity in the access to technology. So yeah, but we might be able to use some certain ways of AI or to help people collect more information. But I'm not saying that on-site conservation or on-site discussions are going to be replaced, but AI might help from another level to help in these areas. For example, we also see the development of geo AI, which use the satellite image as input for accessing or analyzing the space around us. So in that, if we look from above from the space, then everyone is basically equal. So that is maybe one of the possibilities for this kind of research in the future.
Thank you. I've seen in the chat, like there's a question for Yuding.
Yes, thank you, Wala. I saw your question. You're curious about how we do the assessment. I would like to say, actually, we posted the assessment as a framework, and we found the dimensions from articles. Actually, this is just an article review. So I must say, just an initial framework. We have 5 dimensions: collaboration, co-creation, inclusiveness, engagement, and personalization. But I believe there can be more details, or we can make some progress based on this framework. It's just the initial framework. Thank you for your interest in my research.
Wait, you have 2 more questions.
Okay, let me see. What would you recommend? Describe photographs for... Yes. Actually, when I was doing this research, I was questioning myself which tool is the best, which tool has the most potential. But I think there is no answer because participatory means people-centered. So whether this is a nice tool depends on the users. I would like to say the users and tools should fit each other. So for researchers, maybe the AI or segmentic, these kind of technologies are suitable for the researchers to have some structured content. But for tourists or kids, maybe serious games, and especially something with photos, something easily to sense and understanding, like pictures, they can be more suitable for beginners, for the wild learners. So yes, the photographs are very useful, but also we need to concern about the users, what their characteristics and what their what are needs. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, here is a question for maybe Xin-Chen. You can answer this question.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for request. But I thought maybe for tangible heritage, AI enable can by virtual reconstruction, immersive storytelling like AR, some AR VR experience, like allow people to explore sites remotely. Like for example, recently a popular method, 3D Gaussian splitting or nerve model technique like this. And for intangible heritage, I thought maybe AI can help some document language, some technique represent music or rituals to create interactive learning tools like engage young or people to enroll in. Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more question for Yanzhou. Do you believe that using AI to document heritage would minimize storage and logistical challenges? I've seen this interesting question from the chat board.
Which question? Can you rephrase a bit?
Do you believe that using AI as a tool to document heritage would minimize storage and logistical challenges?
I think this is a very hard question. I think from my own research, the research related to diasporic heritage, when we collect data, it's kind of easy to conduct through social media searching. Then we can collect the data from the communities. And then using this classification model, we are able to classify the different heritage attributes, and it's kind of more efficient than manual labeling this process. and minimize storage and logistical challenges. I'm not that an expert in this field, but I think, for example, our model, at least the collection, the data set, and also the model is not that big. And because we're just using birds as a large language tool to do the classification, so it doesn't require that much like digital storage at this point, I think. Yeah.
Here's one more question for you from Xuefei Huang. Would you please answer this question as well?
Okay, could you introduce more about the multi-label classification depending on other frameworks under the conservation determined label? Or what? Okay, so the multi-label classification is built on an existing framework of heritage attributes of our research group, but somehow we kind of extended it a little bit to include more categories of heritage attributes. For example, previously we only think there are two categories, tangible and intangible, but then we discovered that there are kind of relationship between the tangible or intangible, or between the different communities or objects relations. They are kind of difficult to categorize them into tangible or intangible. So in this sense, we extended this framework to the relationship, this category, and also built on a multi-layer classification. It means the attributes can be understand in more detailed way. And then using the classification, the hierarchical multi-label classification model, this model can help first classify the main categories of heritage attributes, and then using the output of the higher level as inputs for the later levels, then we can make the accuracy of the model higher, I think. Yeah. So I don't know if I answer your question.
Okay, we have just 1 minute left. Sorry for this live Q&A session, and thank you very much for all the presenters. And as suggested by Julie, and we can also use the question and answer box to answer questions in the written format. Please feel free to reach us and just write us a message. And thank you very much for all the audiences, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liang, and all the panelists for such a rich discussion, very thought-provoking on communities' preferences and participation, and also all the issues that were discussed. And I hope that we'll be able to get to all the questions with your help. And now it's time for our keynote address for day 2. And it's my honor to introduce Professor Frederick Truan from KU Leuven. Frederick Truan is a professor at KU Leuven specializing in digital cultural heritage and digital transformation of heritage institutions. He works extensively on AI-enabled tools for metadata enrichment, harmful language detection, and improving access to digitized collections through large-scale European innovation projects. His research focuses on Gen AI and generative AI and can be responsibly integrated into heritage workflows. His keynote, Uses and Promises of AI Solutions for Heritage Institutions, will help us to reflect on how heritage institutions can integrate AI into their day-to-day work, from cataloging and access to preservation and interpretation, while remaining accountable, transparent, and people-centered. And this will also hopefully shed light on some of the questions that were put in the Q&A box as well as in the chat. So over to Professor Truan. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello, and Thank you for welcoming me here for this talk. I will quickly share my screen. Then I hope that you are now seeing this screen.
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Okay,
yes.
then I can start my talk. So I'm Fred Ruijn from Leuven University, and I work mostly on thinking about digital transformation issues for the management of heritage institutions, but also am involved in digitization and metadata projects. So what I want to discuss with you today is, first of all, a quick situation of where, in my opinion, we AI or artificial intelligence is entering the fray. So at what point in the digital evolution of heritage institutions are we now, and what can AI mean there? And I will discuss two example projects that we did in the context of Europeana, the portal of European heritage, using AI tools. I will also, at the end, quickly mention a MOOC that we prepared for VIA. We collaborated on this, and VIA is one of the co-sponsors of this event. AI to understand and connect people. As a background, I would like to discuss how digitization has been adopted in the sector of libraries, archives, museums, heritage sites, by, of course, starting with a digitization workflow. And soon these organizations noticed that you had to reorganize your existing work methods around this workflow. So in the beginning, it was a bit a separate activity, disconnected from the museal aspect, the curation aspect, the communications aspect. And soon it became clear that you had to align these activities. It also became clear that for implementing a good digitization workflow, you had to do capacity building in-house. You had to retrain part of your staff, hire maybe new profiles. And so most institutions are now there. We just finished at the university a total revision of the tasks of the personnel of the libraries in light of digitization. So I think many institutions are there. What is still not yet clear for many institutions, to our feeling and also to the surveys that we did, is that the digital outputs that you create are becoming assets for your organization. They become and they will become part of the heritage that you care for. And people do not seem to sufficiently realize that. When you do digitization now of your holdings, your museum pieces, your artworks, your books, your archaeological finds, in 50 years from now, these visualizations, these digital files will become part of the heritage. They will be the things that you will be displayed, that you will be bring in contact to the users. And this means that you need to think really in these digital workflows to the sustainability and the life cycle management of all this. One of the most things that we have to do when we do consultancy of museums today is to point out that when you integrate a 3D exhibition, that you need to think about the life cycle management of this 3D. And that in 5 years, if it will be Windows 12 or 13, will it still work? That is one of the questions you have to ask yourself. But on the other hand, we see that these digital technologies have empowered the possibilities to reach out to audiences. And we see a parallel movement that starts not from the collections, but from the stakeholders, from the communities that own the heritage and that give meaning to the heritage. And we see on social media, on digital catalogs and interactions, we see that there start to come really co-creation activities with these stakeholders. We did many projects in the context of Europeana for that, where together with the stakeholders, we try to develop new content, new visions, new interpretations of the heritage. And this means that instead of capacity building of your staff, we see now that you are doing capacity building of the audience, that you are training communities on how they can manage their heritage themselves, how they can take part in this task. And of course, if we look at the softwares that you then need for this digital environment, you move from the management of digital assets to the management of communities. And we see that a lot of democratization softwares, online parliaments, online voting systems are being adopted now. And for me, that is the real sustainable development. That is more than life cycle management of an IT system. This is really the sustainable development of your heritage care function. And this means that when we look at how CHIs work, we now see a kind of circle where there is a push inside out, and on the other hand, an outside that is creeping in. From the moment that you opened up your social media platform, that you opened up your websites, the participants come in and they stay. They are lurking, they are watching every move that you do inside your institution. And the more we realize that, the more we realize we need new tools. And of course, there I see big opportunities for AI, because one of the most powerful things that AI can deliver and has proven to deliver is in the interface, is in the prompt, is in the chat with the audience. And the strange thing is that what we mostly notice is that many AI applications now in the sector are backend applications, are really trying to, like we do, improving metadata, using AI, etc. But that is really the backend. And I think we will see a move soon to, instead of having the passive website, to have these interactive chats with the content. And very important, and something that I always explain to my students is, when you do this kind of IT innovation, you need to know what you will destabilize. What is going away? What do you want to phase out? If you adopt AI systems and you have no clear idea what you want to stop doing in the future, what will be replaced by the AI, then it just adds to your workload. And we all know that the means and the funds in the heritage sector are rather limited. So keep that in mind and think about what are we phasing out when we are introducing AI. Now, to come to the gist of the talk, I want to give two examples that we did in the context of Europeana, funded by the Digital Europe program. AI for Culture, which was an inventory of existing tools that had already proven themselves for AI adoption in the cultural and heritage sector. And the second is an in-depth tool that we developed to enhance the metadata by the use of an LLM. And I will also point to the MOOC that together with VIA we created, AI to understand and connect people. Now, AI for culture. So the role of KU Leuven here was the capacity building. We were not the developers, but we made the inventory of the tools, so we have a good view on what exists in the market. And the team of NTW and a lot of other developers worked on the real innovative stuff. So it's a platform that you can all join. It's just aiforculture.eu. And you will find there a list of about 70, 80 tools that are already mature, that we documented, that we checked on their documentation quality, on the fact that they that it is clear what kind of complexity they presuppose, what you need to use them, what kind of skills are needed to implement them, so that you can inform yourself before implementing these tools. They are open source tools, and they are joined by some exemplary open data sets. Now, we also offer some upskilling material on how to use those. Very important is that for a number of these tools that we created also in this project, we added recipes, easy recipes to help you to implement the tool and to adopt the workflow to these tools. What are these tools? Well, mostly text recognition, scanning support, subtitling, a lot of machine translation, of course, and more growing in importance, the semantic linking. So the link between your digital catalog and the linked data, and how AI can be used to ease this enrichment process. And then, of course, also a lot of image analysis tools that where good AI solutions exist. Many tools built on, let's say, what happened already since 10 years ago, and the orientation to crowdsourcing for a lot of activities. Certainly in the enrichment of our catalogs, we see that many heritage institutions did crowdsourcing, and now a lot of tools are available to enhance this. So you will find them in AI for Culture with some exemplary data sets. The most important call for me now to you is you can upload your own tools there, you can document there and have a large audience. AI for Culture is embedded in Europeana. It will be linked in their capacity building activities, and it will reach out to at least a lot of institutions in Europe this way. A second project that I would like to highlight is DeBias. DeBias focuses on the more classic approach, where we have our metadata. And what we noticed is that the metadata that these couple of thousand institutions who contribute to Europeana ingested into the Europeana catalog are often somewhat older, somewhat lacking detail, being very scarcely documented, and sometimes using an outdated language. This outdated language can sometimes really be offensive or derogatory, and if you then publish this as a public service, you need to be careful. You have some responsibilities as a publisher, and so on the metadata, we think that we need to make these metadata more consumable, accessible. Of course, we will never touch the sources. It's also not the role of Europeana to manage the sources, so we don't touch the source material. We developed for this a methodology, a typology, so a methodology to include communities in the co-creation of these vocabularies. we went a step further than crowdsourcing in the sense that we wanted crowd engagement and crowd co-validation. We developed a typology of bias cases that we wanted to address, and then we made a vocabulary and a tool. We put a lot of work in the engagement methodology. Many of our organizations that partnered in the project had long-standing experience with working with communities. And from that and with these communities, we then started to think about the bias themes that we wanted to address. Bias can occur at many levels in the metadata. It can be terminological, it can be nominative, it can be in the relation between the media and the metadata, and between the text and the image, for example. And for this, we used crowd heritage, which is an often used tool in the Europeana context to do this kind of crowd engagements. So I mentioned here a lot of the linguistic misrepresentations that we found in the metadata and that we wanted to clean up. We used a lot of published vocabularies already. And then, so that is the step where we worked with the literature, with the existing practices and the existing metadata in the heritage institutions. And then the typology was developed with cultural studies experts. And the next layer is then the digital humanities part, the interface towards engineering, where our digital humanities experts developed the knowledge graphs to translate these vocabularies into something that we could connect to the AI tools. You can download these vocabularies, and we call you, of course, if you have vocabularies for other languages, please notify us and we will include them. For those who are aware of how these kind of LLM tools work, here just a very recognizable scheme, I guess. And here is the infrastructure. So our tool is both integrated in Europeana, where we ran it on the collection, so on millions of data. But you can also use the debias tool as a standalone tool. You will find the address in the link that is embedded in the slides. Or if you just search for debias Europeana, you will find this. And you can upload your own files. And of course, we can also, it's open source, we can also collaborate on further development. We validated the vocabularies that we developed and contextualized with communities. So with heritage communities, both in Europe and outside Europe. So that's a quite important thing. Because we started with trying to identify the contentious terms, but then we noticed that there is much more to gain by enriching the metadata with much more understanding and contextualization of the objects in our European collections. And this we do together with the communities using the same infrastructure. Here an example on how it is integrated in Europeana. So you will find a kind of debias icon that leads you to an explanation of the contested term and some more information. We also publish the vocabularies on the EU VocBench vocabulary system so that it can be part of linked data. That was what I wanted to show for this project. You can find some recommendations there also, but I'm running here out of time. So I will skip to the last part. We contributed from these projects also to the course that we developed together with FIA, and which maybe in the rest of these ICROM events will get a place again, is our MOOC on AI to understand and connect people, in which we also address how it works for heritage institutions. Thank you for your attention, and I'll stop. sharing the video, if I'm right.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Travan. This was just a very rich talk, and you touched on so many points, and I'm sure our listeners are going to ask questions to you. Just to sum up, what personally touched me was the idea that we have been focusing on the back end, but we really need to now focus on these relationships with people and focus on the front end relationships, and also how you spoke about the debias project and how it is helping to bring out these important vocabularies together. And I think there are so many points that you highlighted in your talk. It will take us time to digest all that. But with that, I would like to open the floor briefly for questions before we take a break. So are there any pressing questions for our keynote speaker today? And let me see if there are any in... yeah, so there's something that is in the Q&A, which is from Marvin Tajeda Jada. With the use of AI technology, how can we protect sensitive heritage articles or places from looting and locating from theft instances? And I meant locational tagging, just what happens to the Louvre theft?
Can you
Are you going to speak to that, Dr. Professor Trohan?
So what was exactly the question?
I'll say it's like, does AI help to protect sensitive heritage article or places from looting and locating from theft instances like the Louvre theft? Like, can AI really help in locating?
Locating looted art and looted
Yes.
heritage, yeah, which is a very contemporary theme. Yes, I think that AI is certainly will be playing a role in that, because you need to link an enormity of information from very different sources, and trying to do this in the structured way where you link the databases, that won't help you, because you need to find an image somewhere with a journal article or a paper or a trace somewhere on the web, and you need to connect it. And this way, I think that is something that already web search engines are improving by using in their indexing AI backend solutions. And this will certainly help to trace. But of course, we need specific training to build meaningful traces, to see how we can identify traces that can be used to identify locations, dislocations of content. But yeah, that is happening in fact already. I think there are already a few known cases on finding these looted materials this way.
Thank you, Professor Frederick. There is another question in the chat, which I'll read out. Since many of these AI technologies are still being developed and need to be trained for specific institutional contexts, how can heritage organizations ensure that introducing AI does not slow down workflows or create new bottlenecks? In a way, it alludes to what you were saying, what it will destabilize. And instead of aiming for large, complex systems from the start, what small practical steps can institutions take to begin integrating AI smoothly and sustainably?
Yeah.
So there are two questions there.
Yeah, on the first question, I think we see that many public authorities and organizations of heritage institutions realized that the training that has been done, the core training, which was so expensive and you cannot do it again. So what we are doing now is tuning, is fine tuning, but the core training has been made on data that often are of dubious provenance. Using outdated language, and certainly for less spoken languages and minority languages, that poses a real problem. And so I think the best thing you can do is in the sector, and it's very typical for the heritage sector, organize yourselves in at a larger scale. Regional organizations, sector organizations, these are the places where you can put some efforts together and try to do something. The Dutch government is planning to tune and train on validated public Dutch documents, specifically to have a counterweight to the narrative that comes from the current trend. And I think we need to do this globally. So regions should step up. Certainly what we call minority languages in Europe, but they are often very global languages.
Very global languages,
They need to
exactly.
do this. The second, the smaller steps, well, look at, again, you need a lot of back-end knowledge to really implement it. I would say browse in the tools that we gathered already and that we curated for you in AR for Culture. And there you will see what kind of level of intensity they require. So the work has been done there a bit for you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And there is last one, how to save data for long term. Nobody is speaking about the risks of hacker problems or support or LTO, or else. That is a big problem. No AI can save and rebuild the lost digital data. So what's your take on that? And there are also, I see some other comments.
AI transforms them, in fact, to a memory, to a living memory. And that's what happens. Right? So the encoding in the transformer works like our memory. So it transforms this data into a collectively shared memory. And now we need to negotiate, because there are a lot of invested money of private funds, etc. There is the public interest. There are a lot of negotiations. How do you do this? The memory can mean that certain innovative styles that are copyrighted and that are the living of designers are now suddenly promoted as a public good. These are all discussions that are taking place in the sector. What is our interest, what not? But it has to do that we are building now a collective memory that we should be aware of. And is there a right to forget? Are there painful memories? We worked in the bias on the painful memories.
On the painful, exactly.
These are the issues of today.
And also somehow linked to the geopolitics as well as the other risks of, conflict that we are facing increasingly, and polarization and many others. So, Professor Frederick, one more. I'll go very quickly. When designing AI frameworks for heritage, it is often the same group of people, those already invested in heritage, already interested or invested in heritage, who are consulted. How do you ensure that the selection of participants is diverse and inclusive so that resulting frameworks reflect a wider range of perspectives and do not intentionally reinforce existing biases? And that must have been the challenge for DBias.
That was really what we wanted to do in DBias, because we had our opinions about what was wrong in the metadata. But when we went to the communities and we let them validate, we found dissonances, we found other opinions, we found the need for negotiation. We found very much difference, for example, between communities in Europe that have their roots outside of Europe and the people outside. And so there were discrepancies there, there were different embeddings, and that exactly pointed us to the problem that you pointed out here in the question. You cannot do this just as a heritage professional. You need to use tools that bring in the communities themselves. They can, so you need democratic voting tools, which we implemented, so people could upvote or downvote. It's difficult because who represents who? Often there are some dissonances in the opinions. Yeah, you need to become a manager of communities. Yeah, that is true.
Would working with local governments or local municipalities help at that level to reach out to more grassroots level organizations, perhaps?
Yeah,
Also.
it's the whole social network that you need, because the government can have its own bias. So there are stakeholder communities, there are NGOs, there are a lot of voices. And I think now we have the tools, and that's why I was stressing the strong part of AI is not really the backend, but is the chat, is the communication, and let's focus on that.
So I think that was a very rich one, and there is a question. I'll let it hang if you care to answer. While people are starting to rely or depend on AI for data collection and analysis, how could we validate and cross-check the accuracy of the data? This was also flagged yesterday. Importantly, the authenticity of the cultural heritage in its actual or original context, at its origin. These are all very messy questions, I must say. And yeah, so perhaps if you'd like to shed some light on that.
Oh, I think that's a bit the essence of our work. It didn't change through AI. Heritage institutions have always had this task to tell the history today, and to make it to relive a past that has gone, that has new meanings, and to negotiate that. And I think what we now see is that the tools are catching up with us and are more and more partnering in these activities, so that a lot of the things that we did before we do now in a digital way, but it is still the good work of heritage professionals, historians, community workers. That doesn't really change, but your scope changes and your performance changes, of course. Yeah.
This is so true and so valid for all times, that the basic work has been done, and on the back of that work, we are building new tools, but we cannot, these are just tools, technology enablers, but we still have to do what we have to do as cultural heritage professionals, and we still have to involve other fields, and we have to work with our source communities. So thank you, Dr. Rafiq Anadol, for the, Dr. Frederick Truen, for this very rich conversation. I would like to now, invite all of you to take a break for a reset and refresh, and we will get back to you after this very rich keynote with a parallel session, and soon coming up next. So see you soon.
So while everybody else is still rejoining, perhaps I'll pass the question to Todd. Are you with us? We'll just wait for everyone to join. All right. There we go. Tradik, would you like to ask your question now? Let me unmute you.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, please go on.
Okay. My question is on what are the best practices for using AI to restore and conserve damaged or deteriorating heritage artifacts or objects as far as AI is concerned in the protection of heritage?
Any of both sessions, since we are all here together, any speaker from both the session would like to answer this question for Tradik? I can unmute all of you, or you can just raise hand if you would like to speak.
Maybe I repeat the question.
Yes, please repeat the question. And also maybe, is it directed to a certain speaker? Let us know. Oh, Tural would like to answer.
My question
Go ahead, Tural.
Okay. The
If
question is,
please, if you could
what
repeat.
are the best practices? All right.
So
Question?
yes, I think Tradish, your question was about how we can use AI for the damage assessment on the buildings, if I heard it very correctly. So at the moment, we with ICROM, in fact, together, and UNESCO have been developing, working on a methodology that ICROM has developed, and we were adapting the forms for the on-site damage assessment. We are collecting. This enables us to collect a lot of data from the damage assessed personnel on the ground who is filling these forms and uploading to the digital environment that we have created. So it started in Ukraine, but we would like to expand it for many other countries. So if you have many, for example, in this case, if you have a large amount of data, coming, and this is a standard data, like everyone is filling the specific form, specific questions, and there are boxes that they are taking. So it's a very standard. So, and we know that this language model, and it's very good at real assessing and the summarizing and this kind of large scale of standard data. So it could be automatized in this way if we have the enormous number of data coming from the damage assessment. It could be used also remote sensing technology. So now we are doing a satellite image assessment using the satellite images, and AI is getting better in understanding the images and the trends in the images, and it takes a lot of time. It's a very time-consuming process, because if you can imagine a city scale satellite image, then you have to really zoom in and see the change in the building patterns, etc. So AI could basically reduce the time that we spend on this and help us to indicate where the most likely the buildings that got damaged because of a missile strike or because of an earthquake or because of the incident. So this could be the potential, the ways that could be used, and we are seeing the cost of it and how we can adapt it, and whether this will be, at this stage we will have a reliable result after this assessment.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tural, for that answer. I also believe that we have the other session that has been joined in plenary together. So maybe Mohana, would you like to take the next question for one of your speakers?
No, I just wanted to mention that we were having a similar conversation in the other panel by Dr. Hisham and Dr. Rihal, and don't know if they would like to add something to this. Dr. Hisham, Dr. Rihal, would you like to continue the conversation we were having on damage and risk assessment? Yes, please go on.
So one of the important things we try to do is collect different patterns of damage to different types of structures. And this kind of work has been done by many people since the 90s. In Italy, Professor Lagomarsino produced a very nice classification of types of damage, specifically to churches. But also, we're working with data sets from Mexico and Turkey and Morocco. And we're trying to get more data from Italy. But again, this sharing of data is a little bit of an obstacle. And we try to include these patterns of damage in our ontology so that people who are collecting the data can fit it directly into one of the categories that are in one of the patterns. So that helps with the classification at the early stages of surveys.
Thank you so much. Julie, I think you can take over.
Thank you. I think we had the next question for Dr. Todd. Are you with us? Yes, I see you on my screen. I'll ask you to unmute. There's a question in the chat from Mariana for you. AI facilitates access to specialized knowledge, but how can we prevent the reduction of skilled worker positions in low-resource countries because it's cheaper to use AI? Is UNESCO, for example, I think this is also towards Thural, considering guidelines on this matter? I'm concerned about the implementation and understand it depends on each country's resources, but perhaps international guidelines could help mitigate the situation. So first, Todd, would you like to answer?
Yes, so thank you for the question. And the keynote today, Dr. Thurian was talking about what is it that AI is going to not, we all talk about what it's going to do, but what is it going to not do? You know, so what is it that we wanted to take away? So this question is directly asking that, you know, is it going to take away, you know, kind of a level of workforce? But I think it's actually just the opposite, you know, and so we've heard this as well from some of our speakers in terms of preserving our resources. So what do we do when there's been damage? And what the project that I'm working on specifically, and I'll talk about that, what that does is then enables that workforce to be utilized in a different way rather than surveying, because surveying is the key. And so, you know, Dr. Thural out here has talked about how we build these data sets of information that then gives us information to repair damage that's been done. And so I would suggest that, you know, what the opportunity that AI presents in terms of surveying properties is to free up human capital for exactly these endeavors, for, you know, repairing damage that's been done, for actually having skilled workers to analyze the data that's been taken in. And so I think it doesn't take away work, it just redirects it to exactly what we're talking about here.
Thank you so much. Thural, do you also want to comment on
maybe very shortly. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
In terms of the first part of the question has been addressed, but the second part, whether there should be the guidelines or whether UNESCO is working on any guidelines to address this problem. For this, you know, for any guidelines or any standard setting instrument or recommendations, before we develop, we try to get the data. So at this stage, unfortunately, at least at UNESCO, we do not have a data on how the AI is impacting the workforce in culture sector in general, not only museum, because this question can be, you know, for archives, for different type of institutions. So we don't know. So and we don't know if this will happen, which workforce will change the positions or transform or will disappear. We need to know profile of the professions. And also we have to understand that there could be new professions coming in, right? Like any new technology brings up the new workforce, a new technology, new professions that the museums and others will see in future. So we'll see the balance as for this as well. If the situation is too dramatic, then I guess it's a state-driven process, and they could issue recommendations or any other type of the guidelines.
Sure. Yes. Aparna, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just continuing where Thural left off. I think it is a bit important for us to understand a little bit about how important it is to still have that on-site vigilance or understanding, because if we leave everything, if we think technology is going to be the solution, then that's not the case. It's a tool, it's a powerful tool, but it cannot completely replace the observation, the first-hand understanding of damage and the scale of damage. And we will need a lot of data before AI can really, truly inform us about the degree of damage, and also structural as well as at an object level, at the structure level, all those problems. And also the human touch. We should not, or the human eye and the observation and the feeling. Some of the data that we collect at a damaged site is also about how people live in it and how still they would like to use it in the future. So all that, as also Professor Frederick was saying, we still need that background work. And on the top, we can have these tools which can make it easier.
Yes. Thank you so much, Aparna. I see that there are a lot more questions here. I'll hand over to Mohana because we have to close this session and move on to the next one. Mohana, please.
No, so there was just one last question for the panelists in session 1 for Muhammad Ali Moanje, and I would suggest that we take up this question in the chat itself. And Muhammad, I tagged you in the question. You can maybe answer it there, or please join us in the Ctrl+S Cafe, which we will have end of this day, and we can continue this discussion there. So we are running a bit late, so let's continue with our next scheduled panels, and we will come back to this question. It's well noted, Katie. We will not forget your question.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whichever zone you're joining us from. Welcome again. My name is Linda Neruba from the Uganda Museum, and I have the absolute privilege of facilitating this session. 1, AI, accessibility, and community engagement for inclusive heritage conservation. This session examines how artificial intelligence is reshaping the documentation, analysis, and exploration of cultural heritage. AI enables the reconstruction of intangible patterns, the modeling of historic floor plans, and the detection of archaeological sites, while also powering of historic floor plans and the detection of archaeological sites, while also powering interactive access to knowledge, repositories, and archival collections. Across these applications, computational tools reveal hidden patterns, classify complex datasets, and generate predictive or immersive representations that support conservation, research, and public engagement. Yet, these possibilities raise critical questions. How can AI mediate cultural information without stripping it of context, meaning, or local significance? Which narratives are prioritized or marginalized when algorithms interpret heritage data? And how can AI systems be designed to ensure inclusivity, ethical stewardship, and the integration of diverse knowledge systems? Now, to kickstart this first Ignite talk, let me invite our first speaker, Shabnam Baloch from the United Kingdom. Shabnam?
Hello, my name is Shabnam Baloch, a researcher, curator, and preventative conservator. Today, I will be sharing Reclaiming Voices, a project that sits alongside the Persia Reimagined from Herbarium to Heritage, the exhibition at Kew Gardens Archive. I will focus on how we're going to use AI not just as a technical tool, but as a way to listen to communities and to repair distorted Persian names in Kew's botanical archives. Basically, this is the phase that we're predicting to have after the end of the exhibition. Artificial intelligence is now woven into heritage practice, from cataloging and search to translation and discovery. But AI systems are only as neutral as the data and the design choices behind them. In archives like Q's, historical records are entangled with colonial perspectives. For Iran, this shows up very clearly in place names, cities and regions, written as British collectors heard them, or adapted to their cartography. Examples like pronunciation of the name of the city is Bushehr instead of Bushehr, Yazd instead of Yazd, which is the way that they would hear the word in people's accents from the cities and regions. For about 2 decades, heritage policy has celebrated digitization as the main route to access, but putting scans and records online doesn't automatically make them equitable. Search interfaces and databases typically privilege Latin scripts and spellings and dominant languages. So even when Persian materials are digitized, they remain hard to find if place names are misspelled or inconsistently translated. In this research, I argue that accessibility has to move beyond who can see the record towards who can speak through it. Persian place names are a good example of this matter. They carry layers of dialect, regional identity, and history, but often appear in archives in multiple, inconsistent Latin forms that flatten that complexity. Community engagement here is not a one-off consultation, but a co-authorship and ownership. We draw the care principles, collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics, and broader ideas of indigenous and community data sovereignty. In practice, that means every voice recording comes with an explicit consent agreement. Contributors can choose different levels of visibility, from fully open to restricted, and they retain the right to change their mind. So what has this produced so far? Tangible outcomes include an emerging oral archive of Persian place name pronunciations, catalog records where corrected forms and clearly attributed and cross-referenced, and a documented workflow that other institutions can adapt for their own challenges and issues. Stepping back, Reclaiming Voices offers a small but concrete model of inclusive AI in heritage. Inclusion here is not measured by how many users access the database, but by how far authority is shared, who gets to define the terms, correct the records, and be acknowledged. The lessons are transferable. Start every digital project with consent and governance. Design accessibility around language and relationships, not just reach. Treat participation as ongoing and ensure that AI remains accountable through human review and visible decision trails. When ethics are built into the infrastructure, AI becomes a support for the matter rather than a new barrier. To conclude, Reclaiming Voices is not just about correcting spellings, it's about restoring linguistic dignity, embedding consent and care into digital practice, and using AI as a way to listen to communities whose knowledge has often been sidelined. I'd love to think with you about how similar approaches could apply to other collections and languages. Basically, this is the pilot of what we are going to do. as we did the research on the archive, Persian materials that we found in Kew Gardens archive. And I would like to think that this is going to be possible with AI, with the approach that I just explained. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions. My email is on the slide if you'd like to do any follow-ups. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shabnam. Please be informed that you can still put your questions in the chat and we can respond to them after the keynote speaker. Our next speaker is from Uganda, and she is committed to amplifying women's histories and ensuring their legacies are honored, remembered, and made visible. Pocha is from Uganda and is the founder of Because of Her Uganda, an initiative documenting and amplifying the stories of African women. Her work connects heritage, media, and public engagement to preserve women's contributions across East Africa's history and culture. Let's welcome Pocha with her live presentation, Weaving African Women's Heritage Through AI Artistry. Welcome, Pocha. Pocha, are you
Hello,
around?
good evening. Oh, good evening, everyone. Apologies, I had a bit of a technical issue with my device. It's been a bit of a rainy day, so thank you all for being here. My name is Wera Pocha. I run an organization called Because of Her Uganda, where we focus largely on the archival and celebration of Ugandan women's history. And one of our essential and core parts of our work is to essentially make sure that the archive of African women's history, especially Ugandan women's history, is not left to waste. It's not left to disappear. And so my article focuses on, first of all, centering African women and Ugandan women, especially as carriers of heritage within their countries, with a specific focus on ensuring that they are remembered for what they contributed to the fabric of our country. This is in food, this is in arts, this is in storytelling, this is in the oral tradition that we have kept up over the years, and then re-centralizing us as within political movements that we have participated in. This is through our legislation and examples from across Uganda and Malawi, and then looking at how AI can be instrumental in savoring this content and ensuring that it's accessible to all. I'm hearing there are issues with hearing me. I hope you can all hear me. I'm having a bit of issues with my device, but yes. Unfortunately, I had some issues with my devices, but I will be able to speak verbally to my article.
Go ahead.
So, yes?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. If we'll be able to, since we'll be able to carry on from that point. So what I wanted to begin with is to understand the influence of patriarchy and how it has influenced how heritage, even in itself, is viewed. When we look to see how what's recorded and what remains, especially through our national museums, we see the hunter-gatherer rhetorics, we see the naming of traditional societies, what's available, and then we move on to what remains of the collaborators and who participated in that. And then we move on straight to Uganda as of today, without mentioning the key areas that women really played a role in, because this is what patriarchy brought about, the separation between the private and public hemisphere. And a lot of the women's hemisphere moved into the private space, which dumbed down is what they contributed as spiritual leaders, educationers, and even artists. It's a common view to see that permeate even now, with women's traditional medicine not being as popular as the scientific medicine we get to see today. And when our versions or stories that we're telling do not exactly paint us out to be the heroes within our communities, or even to know that the communal practices that we kept up are not as easily identifiable when we look at mainstream heritage practices. And this historical mishap is seen throughout a lot of our historical retellings. We have tales of leaders like Queen Nyabingi from Uganda here. We have Senegal's Fatima Bey, who was an ancient princess, who was also involved in leadership. And even the Dahomey, who are in Benin without being mentioned unless they are brought into a retelling that's made maybe through a movie, but not within our traditional museum settings. And that's what I would like to advocate for and change, is to decolonize and depatriarchalize our heritage systems and ensure that what women's knowledge starts to count and starts to mean something. Because we are the custodians of what culture looks like, from food, from music to dance and all our spiritual practices. And even with the growth of the ongoing creative and cultural industries, it's essential that women also play a key role in being represented here, be given ownership over their works, and then also adequately compensated for their efforts. I'd like to highlight a very good organization that I benchmarked on in my article, which is the Maasai Women Development Organization, which spearheaded efforts for culture preservation, education, and healthcare. It's one of the ways they decided to maintain the beadwork and artistic practices for Maasai women, which is quite known across the world. I'm very sure those of you who have seen Avatar have seen some of these intricate beadwork examples on the blue people, but not exactly crediting where this beadwork and artistry has come from, which has traces in West Africa and East Africa, and commonly more identified with the Maasai women. So they have done great work in preserving that artistry and making sure more and more of that work is kept, that heritage of beadwork is kept. I'd also like to highlight the significance of women even within Islamic communities, who have been essential to maintaining their architecture style, their manuscripts, and have been at the grassroots of protecting that heritage. Especially, I wanted to highlight the ladies who are in Mali, who are in Timbuktu, who did a great work of post-conflict heritage work, which has not really been highlighted. When we think of post-conflict work, we don't really think of heritage management, and yet women have been essential to preserving that and ensuring that that has been kept. And well, I'd like to leave.
Pochu?
Yes.
Pochu, I'm afraid I'll have to stop you from here because of time, but we can still continue this conversation at the end of the keynote speaker.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
but thank you so much. Thank you so much for raising the voices of the marginalized. Thank you so much. Up to our next speaker from Nigeria with the full live presentation. Peter, are you on? Can you join us? Peter is a curator and conservator with 13 years experience of material, culture, and public engagement. He consults with the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library in Nigeria and specializes in preventive conservation, exhibition and design, and AI-supported strategies for climate-resilient collections. Thank you, Peter. You're here?
Yes.
Welcome.
Good evening, or good day to everyone. My name is Peter Diwali Jegede. I'm consultant curator at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, Abeokuta. So I'm delighted to be here today to share how we are integrating artificial intelligence into our daily museum work, not as a futuristic experiment, but as something that is already shaping how we care for our collections and collect with our communities. At Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, our museum work goes beyond displaying objects. It is a living dialogue between connections, people, and the environment. The Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, shortened as OOPL, was opened to the public in 2017 as Africa's first presidential library. It preserved the legacy of former President Olusegun Obasanjo and tells Nigerians' recent history through objects, photographs, textiles, documents, multimedia displays. Our exhibition include a permanent exhibition, presidential exhibition, legacy of leadership, immateriality of materials, and the Ashoke exhibition. So these collections are very rich and diverse. They include wood, leather, textiles, paper, and metal, but they're also very fragile in Nigeria's hot and humid climates. So these collections, this reality drives our AI, the exploration of AI-assisted tools to improve care and storytelling. So our AI integration focuses on two key areas. Number one is the collection care, and using AI-assisted monitoring to strengthen preventive conservation. The second aspect is the community-centered storytelling, using digital tools to bring people's voices into our exhibition. Both are very practical, low cost, and directly tied to our daily museum operation. So I would like to begin with collection care. So we developed and piloted an AI-assisted environmental tool called Music Climate. It's a simple, affordable sensor system that continuously tracks temperature and humidity in our galleries and stores. But more than that, the AI algorithm predicts when microclimate changes might occur. For example, sudden spikes in humidity during the rainy season that can cause mold or cracking. So Music Climate is not just it's not yet on the market as a branded device. It is our own pilot system at OOPL. So we built it by combining affordable sensors and a small AI program that learns our gallery conditions and predicts microclimate changes. So it is proved that we can develop smart tools locally without depending on expensive imports. So this allows us to make preventive action, adjusting ventilation, rotating displays, and also temporarily removing sensitive materials before damage happens. So what makes this device, this Music Climate system special is that it is designed for resource-limited contests. It doesn't require expensive equipment. It is affordable. You can also replicate it and empowers our staff to use data as part of everyday conservation decision. So at OOPL, we have moved from reacting to damage to anticipating risk. That is a big shift from being caretakers to being forecaster. So the second aspect is storytelling and AI. So we use AI tools to support oral history transcription and multilingual tagging. In our permanent presidential exhibition, visitors can listen to interviews, speeches, and personal story. So AI helps us to transcribe and index this recording so people can search and exploit them in multiple languages, including Yoruba language, Igbo, Hausa, French, and English. So this means the exhibition speaks to everyone, not just to scholars, but to communities whose stories we are telling. So AI for us is not replacing the human voice, it is amplifying it. It's making sure more voices are heard, remembered, and shared. So I would like to go to our various exhibition. The case study one is the permanent presidential exhibition. So this exhibition tells the life story of President Obasanjo from cradle to statesmanship through personal objects, archives, and multimedia. So AI helps us manage the vast recordings and testimonies, turning them into searchable multilingual resources. So visitors can engage with the story of leadership from their own cultural lens. You can see the very good example of how visitors interact with the permanent exhibition. Then the second one is the materiality of material. Here we explore the symbolic power and fragility of materials. The materials are made, the artifacts are made with wood, textile, metal. So Music Climate predicts humidity and temperature changes, helping us rotate and preserve objects before they deteriorate. We even share this process with visitors so that they understand why an object might sometimes be resting and not displaying. So it creates a transparency and trust. The third one is the third case is legacy of leadership. So this exhibition celebrates President Obasanjo's building and continental influence with AI-assisted indexing. We have processed thousands of speeches and diplomatic letters. Now visitors can search themes like peace, unity, or democracy, and instantly access related objects and texts. So it is a powerful way of turning archives into interactive experiences. So the fourth case is Ashoke exhibition. So our Ashoke exhibition celebrates Yoruba weaving traditions. Music climate safeguards the textile from moisture and light, while digital kiosk capture the oral history from weaver. Visitors can hear the voices of artisans, often in their own language, usually Yoruba language, describing what each cloth means. So here AI bridges science and culture, protecting the fabric while preserving its soul. So the key insight from this is that from this example, we have learned that AI and curatorial practice can work hand in hand. AI helps us to care for our collections more intelligently and tell stories more inclusively. But most importantly, we have learned that technology must serve people, not the other way around. So our curators, our conservators, they remain in control. So AI only supports our decision. So this human machine balance reflects UNESCO ethical principle, which is all about fairness, transparency, and accountability. And because our tools are low cost and adaptable, so other museums in Nigeria and other African museums can replicate them. We see this as a model for contextual digital transformation, one rooted in culture, not just technology. So in conclusion, I will quickly, to conclude AI, at OOP is not about automation, it's about augmentation. It strengthens human expertise, makes our storytelling more inclusive and our heritage more resilient. So what we are doing is very simple but powerful, using AI to protect memory, connect people, and give heritage a future in a changing world. So if there is one takeaway, it is there's one takeaway, it is the African Museum can lead in redefining how technology serves culture responsibly, ethically, and
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. Please note that you can still place your questions in the chat so that we can come back to them. I will now hand over to Apana for the next session.
Thank you, Linda, and great presentations again. I hope our participants are engaged after these energizing presentations. We will now continue with the keynote. And is Rafiq, has he joined us? I'm not able to see.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Rafiq Anadol, a renowned media artist, director of Rafiq Anadol Studio and Dataland, and one of the most influential voices shaping the global conversation on data-driven art, machine imagination, and future of experiential storytelling. His work explores the intersection of AI, public space, archives, and collective memory, and has inspired institutions and audiences worldwide to reimagine what digital cultural heritage can be. Today, he will speak on Can Machines Dream About Art? Rafiq Anadol on art and technology. Rafiq, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rafiq Anadol, media artist, and great to be here with you. I'm joining from Los Angeles in our studio, and I would like to share some of our work that I hope I can contribute to these wonderful dialogues. And give me 1 second. I hope you can now see my screen.
Yes.
As an artist, I was super excited to share some of the contribution as a studio. And actually, one of our recent work, maybe you have been seeing, Guggenheim Bilbao Museum, which is called The Living Architecture, Gehry, my hero and mentor and an incredible mind, Frank Gehry. He allowed us to train an AI model on his body of work. And in return, we were able to create these extraordinary living archives of his life and his legacy, and also the similar concept we applied at the Venice Biennale Architecture. So I'm happy to share the journey with you very quickly. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, where I believe one of the heritage contexts of life is very much reflected to the city's fabric of history. The city has a huge inspiration in my practice, how the history and how the left and right and two continents of the life and the earth is connected through this beautiful Bosphorus. My work is pretty much in the intersection of digital and physical. And as a studio, we are practicing using data as a substance for almost 10 years. And my journey started as 8 years old, getting my first computer and watching the Blade Runner as a movie. As an undergrad, I have been so fortunate to create many installations, specifically focusing on media architecture. The idea of the future of architecture can take shape and remember and recontextualize the surface of the buildings. And this practice also emerged philosophically, as Kierkegaard says, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. I believe this is one of the reasons that I am in love with the concept of data as a substance. 2008, I was able to coin the term data painting during my undergrad studies in Istanbul under Peter Weibel, ZKM's former director. And that was a very important time because 2008, before even AI and almost social media was barely starting to get a practice around humanity. I see data as not just numbers. I see data as a form of memory. And I believe this memory can take any shape, any form when it is artistically computed. And during the practice, I was able to use sound data from the Istanbul streets and transform information into sculpture. But in general, like many artists, I have this challenging question. Really, I felt that what is beyond reality was a much more profound question. And over the years, by the way, you can see a frame around my work. That was a very big rejection. And as humanity, as we developed and grow with technology and become a whole new, I guess, living creatures, I am always try to truly understand what does physical and virtual connection means. And specifically looking at our cultural and heritage transformations and how the families and culture are transforming, how the control of the systems are transforming, and specifically this recently, I will say maybe a decade-long experience of the sense of displacement. And to study more, I joined at UCLA Design Media Arts Department as my second MFA, where I am teaching the last 10 years. And I dedicate my research specifically understanding the media architecture. And very much my thesis was on the Walt Disney Concert Hall, which is a 100 years old institution of LA Philharmonic. And I was very fortunate to also had several academic application and was very early, I would say, 2013, 12, was speculating the idea of if a machine can learn, can building also learn? And if building can learn, can it dream? Can it hallucinate? Can it remember? And this research became profoundly one of the pillar of our studio work, and also did several projects inside the LA field. And that's how I guess Frank Gehry connection happened. Right now, as a team, we are 15. We are now 20 people in Los Angeles, can speak 15 languages and represent 10 countries. And if you look at our work, this is a very short show reel. Our work is truly trying to understand the colliding and converging and merging point of art, science, and technology. I do believe that the future of architecture and future of materials and future of public space can be profoundly inspiring when the art happens. And this happening doesn't need to be just in a museum. And I do believe the art should not be only happening in museum or galleries. Art could be happening anywhere and everywhere. And I also believe that art should be for anyone and everyone and any age and culture. And when I think about this, I guess, finding the language of humanity mindset, I found that data and algorithms has a profound impact on our understanding of life and eventually connecting each other and create a whole new ways of communicating around life itself. Also, in our work, we have a very much a cutting edge research going on. AI, neuroscience, and architecture is always the fundamental layers of our work. And at the end of the day, what I believe we are searching for, the relationship between humans, machines, and environments. And our work is generally explored recycled sustainable materials. We try to find ways of embedding media technologies into architecture. We work with hospitals and schools and institutions. So try to get out of like that bubble of like art can only happen in certain locations. And also from the heritage perspective, we were super honored to like collaborate with many incredible archives over the years, from Gaudi to Rumi to like Mozart, but also like incredible archives of LA Philharmonic of 100 years of every single musical recordings. We have been able to like work with NASA GPL archives. We've been able to work with libraries and information that comes from many different institutions. And I learned that very clearly that the information that is hidden inside the archives can be a powerful new storytelling. And those archives can create a whole new meaning, a whole new understanding of the information, unfortunately invisible. So I also believe that our work is a little bit actually contributing to the academic and discourse of making invisible visible. So we not only just use, of course, data and AI in our practice, we also, as you can see, architecturally implementing our concepts and ideas. I'm not an architect, but I wish I'm an architect, that I see spaces. And when I think about editing media into the spaces, I found that there's so much to do in terms of technological imagination, improving like a public or interior or outdoor or exterior experiences, how to work with mother nature, and how to like work with custom environments. This can be like these infinity rooms. This can be using different type of media technologies, projection, LEDs, and custom media environments. In our work, we also explore the living paintings and living sculptures, specifically looking for the future of imagination, where the environment can sense us, can inhabit different information from the audience and the users, look at the performance spaces. I think this is like all about this concept of transforming, I will say, how we perceive time and space. Over the years, we work with also Renaissance data from the like era of like paintings, sculptures, and different architectural innovations. We look for many different archives. And over the years, we were very fortunate to work with very inspiring people. But I believe 2015 is an important year. As Blaise Agoye Arcas also mentioned, I became one of the first artists in resident at Google AMI program. And this program was profoundly important because 2012, when the first algorithms explain us that the GPU technologies can be used for large data sets, and just a couple of years later, getting the residency allowed me and my team to understand how to use AI in large scale. And this was the part that where I would say the challenging question of these machine hallucinations, machine dreams. I mean, even though it's about like creating artistic experimentation, in the fundamental layer, it's understanding the consciousness layer of, I guess, we as living beings. Heavily inspired by Library of Babel, Borgesian, I guess, mindset, we start analyzing large archives and try to find new meanings and new ways of seeing information. Archive dreaming, as far as I know, 2016 became the world's first real-time AI application in a public art. And this project allowed us to deep dive in many large archives. 1.7 million documents, both in real time in physical world, but also in virtual world by using VR applications. And that back in time, the question was, if a machine can learn, can it dream? And as you can see here, now almost 10 years coming, it is an application of the idea, if one day machine can dream. I thought that it doesn't need to worry about Newtonian physics. The pigment doesn't need to dry. Perhaps this pigment can take any shape and any form. And over the 10 years of research, we trained more than 400 AI models, and we were able to work with more than 2 petabytes of data and generate many different applications of art and AI and research around large archives. And over the years, I believe the Carl Sagan's imagination will often carry us to the worlds that never were, but without we go nowhere. And this is exactly where we found that AI can be also inspiring for creating and sculpting with machine intelligence. For example, what we are seeing here is an inspiring archives of Rumi and from Konya, where he died unfortunately back in time, and that his places of like, and that was also the archive of his legacy. What we are seeing here is Mesnevi in 19 different languages read by different AI algorithms. And each reading of the poems and like and literature data, we were able to cluster this information into new data sculptures. So to me, data can become a sculpture. For sure, maybe not like a marble or a concrete or steel or so forth, but I believe that machine intelligence algorithms are also allowing us to create new sculptures. And I believe we are pioneering these new ways of seeing information. Or we can look at the Mozart's body of work, his entire repertoire from 1784 to 1791. We are seeing how AI listening all his body of work and transcoding into similar form of artworks. And I want to come back very quickly, an important topic, because I believe this can be fascinating for this moment. And lastly, I would like to share my embedding AI into architecture context. And what was very inspiring to us is almost now 8 years ago, we start working with the city scale information. These are not real, these are almost realistic AI's dreaming city of New York. And we start transforming built environments and transcode the information of the space of the city into back to the like physical environments. And what you are seeing here is, as you can see, our work is transcoding the architecture and carefully without harming the original transformation. This is specifically an important example to me, a 120 years old theater in Istanbul, and we were able to use every single movie ever played in this space and then eventually reconstruct this new performance into the architecture itself. Not only just static video, but also in real time, interaction with the public is also very important. And lastly, I want to show another project that I hope that will be a contribution to this wonderful conference. I also was very excited about the UNESCO Heritage Building, the Casa Batlló of Gaudi's incredible building. And Gaudí, for me, for one of the most important minds of humanity, where he nature and architecture connected meticulously. For this project, we were able to work with the owners of the building, and with a respect to the heritage of the building, we were able to create this exciting project. By using real-time weather data, we transcode the weather information of the city of Barcelona, and we sense what the building could sense, and the building transforms itself into these artworks. The image on the very right represents the weather data. The image in the middle represents the rain condition. The image on the left represents three-dimensional humidity information affecting the facade of the building. The 1.2 billion LiDAR scannings, I think it's the UNESCO's original recordings of the facade. And then we also give a life by making projection. So I want to show you the projection and finish my keynote. So, and here, we are seeing the facade transforming into three-dimensional world and changing the image of the facade in 3 dimensions. By using 6 projection, we were able to generate a living performance, which I believe was a powerful transformation of the building to remember the heritage, to respect the data. Instead of erasing information, we use AI to remember. And much importantly, we receive 65,000 people and create an extraordinary experience for the city of Barcelona. I hope that this is an exciting perspective for you all, and I am happy to share with you. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Rafiq, for this visually powerful, inspiring, energizing talk. It remains the best feature of our conference. And I now open the floor briefly for questions. And the first question, actually, I'm going to pick up from the Q&A, previous Q&A, and that is, how can AI facilitate other forms of storytelling, which you have just shared with us, and engagement like gesture, posture, feeling in the narration of heritage, in the incidents of histories of wars in their landscape. So you come from an ancient culture and you understand histories of wars. So can you shed some light on this?
Absolutely. So first of all, I have a huge respect and love for culture, exactly from my also heritage. And I think growing with the family of teachers, I have this, the learning to learn early ages was an incredible pattern of life. But I want to say a couple of things that I think I want to be very clear. We only work with our own data sets. We are not like another AI, service or product. We very carefully, meticulously work in information that we use specifically for ethical information and sustainable data, sustainable compute. And this is a very, I think, different practice than many, many others. And also from your perspective, the world has lots of problems, and the world has separations and wars and conflicts. And I do believe that remembering is an act of also responsibility. So first of all, AI means possibilities, but I think possibilities come with responsibilities. And one of the reasons I mentioned ethical and sustainable compute is not necessarily just another basic greenwashing or Sandoz like a shortcut thinking. I believe that the way of using technology for humanity's memories has to be somehow done collectively as good as it can be. I do my work from my heart, so I am not necessarily, I don't believe in DocuSign, I don't believe in PDFs. I believe doing things from my heart first, and then rest, of course, formal engagements. But I believe that that's a very important compass for artists to really understand all aspects of life. And I believe that art has the power of healing. Art has the power of understanding humanity. Art has the power of not only just understanding, but also hearing each other. And I believe that the information, not just numbers, is a form of memory. And I think we can shape it in any way we can. And I think we can find the language of humanity.
Rafiq, one more question, and this is from Linda Neruba, who's herself a digital humanities expert. And Linda, you can yourself ask your question, although it's in the chat. Could you ask the question, Linda?
Thank you. Thank you for a very insightful presentation. I enjoyed it. And my question is, since you are stepping out of the traditional spaces like museums and galleries, could you speak to the requirements of securing permits to have this artwork in non-traditional settings like the hospitals, like you mentioned, and if there are any challenges that you have encountered? Has it been welcomed by the public?
It's a great question, and thank you very much. I think one of the biggest challenges of our productions are literally, as you mentioned, the permits. Because first of all, light is an incredibly wonderful material of life, meaning that we don't harm the surface. Light is probably, particular light is less harming than the sun itself. So that's a very good news. So we don't have any issues on projection mapping the heritages and important surfaces. It doesn't harm and it can disappear, right? It doesn't make anyone unhappy, or if so, it just like disappears at the end of the day, not a permanent concept. But all things for permits, I found myself always get supported by the cities, by the governance, and generally saying, if the artwork has a conceptual innovation, and if the artwork has its own way of connecting the heritage to the public, if it artwork has a purpose and meaning, I always found myself getting the right support and getting the right permission. It's sometimes very hard to implement those work. For example, in Barcelona, in Gaudi's Casa Patio, it's a powerful experiment with 65,000 people closing the main street of the city of Barcelona. But the mayor and office and everyone was very supportive. In Duomo, in Milan, we also tried another project that was also very supportive. I believe if people enjoy the open, free public art, I didn't feel any problem at all.
Well, that's it then. Thank you so much, Rafiq. Thank you for your time. And we will hope to keep the energy and the inspiration that you've given us for the next sessions. And thank you once again for all the effort.
And I would like to invite everyone to use our AI model called Living Encyclopedia. It has a lot of insight information. It's free. You are welcome to join. Dataland.art is our website, and you are welcome to use for free and give us feedback. It has a lot of incredible UNESCO heritage data sets that I hope that you can enjoy and challenge our AI model. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So after that keynote, we get back to our session. And this time we have the facilitator, Ms. Hilke Aris, who's also the coordinator of this conference. And she and Linda will together curate this discussion further. First, I think Hilke would go, and then we can handle the questions. Or Hilke, the floor is to you, and you and Linda take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much, Aparna, for introducing me. We had small changes in the schedule of this conference, so thank you all for your understanding and your patience. Because of the topics of both the sessions of Linda and me are moderating are closely related, we would propose that now the session originally planned in room 2 will start. And then later on, we can do the Q&A for both of the original parallel sessions together, because I think the questions will enrich the discussion later on. So this next topic is about storytelling, creative reuse, and generative heritage application. It takes us into the creative and interpretive side of artificial intelligence, about how technology can help us tell stories, reinterpret collections, and make cultural heritage speak again through narrative, sound, imagery, and immersive experiences. Our speakers in this session are working at the intersection of museums, youth initiatives, digital humanities, and virtual heritage creation. Their work shows that AI is not simply a tool for preservation, it is a catalyst too for reimagining cultural knowledge. So our first speaker is Alia Al-Qamesh from Jordan. She's the leading voice behind Kissa, a living legacy, a grassroots initiative dedicated to documenting and revitalizing Bedouin intangible heritage. Today, Alia will share how this community-driven project blends cultural sensitivity with technological innovation, and showing how AI can support, not replace, human storytellers. So I'm happy to give the floor to Alia for her Ignite talk. Alia, the floor is yours. Alia, are you here?
Hilke, Alia is not here, so maybe you can take the next speaker.
All right. Always exciting, a virtual conference. All right, so our next speaker, this is a pre-recorded Ignite talk from Sami Itavuri. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, I apologize. He is a researcher and a curator working across audiovisual cultures and emerging technologies. His presentation turns a critical lens to one of today's most pressing cultural and technological debates. His research, drawing on research at Tate, Sami examines how images from national collections appear in these data sets, revealing tensions between the values of open access and the realities of commercial algorithmic use. Sami will explore why heritage institutions must move from being passive data providers to active voices, shaping transparency, accountability, and public stewardship in the age of generative AI. So I hand over the floor to Sami.
My name is Sami Itavuri, and I'm a creator and researcher conducting a collaborative PhD project with Tate, London South Bank University, and the Royal College of Art, examining digitalized art collections and text-to-image generative AI. This research resituates heritage institutions as sites of agency and civic educations where collections gain value from promoting societal good within contemporary conditions. This research emerges against urgent challenges societies face with AI. These systems are becoming ubiquitously embedded across governance, business, education, and social media, while simultaneously growing more invisible and opaque behind convenient user interfaces. Public understanding of AI and technical literacy are essential for upholding human dignity and diversity. More than ever, the reconciliation of culture and techniques into a common culture is urgent, and the museum as a site of encounter is ideally situated to positively contribute to this aim. The question then becomes, how can museums move beyond using digital technology merely for preservation and accessibility, expanding their object into the world to speak to present and possible futures? Museums exist as nodes within network communication connected to wider societal developments of algorithmic technologies. If we start conceiving of the museum as more than a collection and more as a technique of information and collection and processing, then we can really find a way of updating the museum's relevance for the 21st century. The Tate Gallery in the UK began digitalizing collections in the 1990s to preserve them and enhance access, launching its first website in 1996. Similar movements followed across European museums with generous public funding, and the techno-optimism of 1990s cyberspace conceived the internet as a territory of free-flowing information, where museums' resources would contribute to universally accessible library enhancing its reach globally and increasing access and creating new avenues for marketing and promotion. While this conception might seem naive today, it would be anachronistic to judge it by current standards. And what's significant here is how mass digitalization accidentally paved the way for these artifacts to be captured for the training of generative AI models. Stable Diffusion, for example, a major open source text-to-image generator, exemplifies this capture. Its training data comes from Leon 5B, the largest image-text pair dataset ever collected with 5 billion entries. This dataset builds on the common crawl bot, which scraped HTML data from websites, collecting images and their caption. Analysis of a subset of Leon reveals that Tate images are present throughout the dataset. Museum images circulate online under various intellectual property frameworks, notably Creative Commons licenses permitting non-commercial use without modification and with attribution. Tate also holds images under copyright requiring licensing agreements and fees for commercial applications, standard practice across art institutions. Models like Stable Diffusion navigate murky waters. Developed by the Ludwig-Maximilian University and Stable AI as a research project, and released open source, the model raises questions about image modification. More problematically, Stable Diffusion serves as a base model for commercial services like Midjourney and Runway ML. These paying services directly breach usage terms, affecting museums and artists economically through lost licensing fees and a lost control over the use and dissemination of the art under their stewardship. The transition from academic research to market rollout has modeled accountability in the area. Despite the remediation attempts like opt-out options in newer models, questions of reparation and income redistribution remain unaddressed, a key economic and political stake in the creative sector's relationship with generative AI developers. A second shift concerns how models conceive digital photographs of heritage artifacts. Developers treat these images as assets to extract from the internet, conceived as a reservoir of raw resources for AI training, something described as data colonialism. Collection images become flattened as training data with purely indexical functions. An image of a car represents a car, regardless of whether it's a mundane photograph, an illustration, an artwork, or an evidence in criminal investigation, for example. This removes all contextuality to serve the purpose of teaching pattern reproduction in machine learning. While this makes engineering sense, in heritage work, context is everything. Its removal raises deep ethical questions about exploiting images, particularly those relating to histories of violence or erasure. Yet this symbolic flattening reveals the profoundly human nature of AI technologies when examining through curatorial and historical expertise. Museums can form public-facing programs utilizing collections to promote AI literacy. Consider aesthetic prediction in Leon 5B. Each image receives a score from 0 to 10 based on an algorithm trained on 170,000 reviews from the amateur photography website DP Challenge. Thus, the logic of homogeneity and conformity determines the mainstream outputs of these models. This quantification offers rich territory for museum reflection and provocation for our publics, but it highlights a critical challenge. The internet's democratic promise of transparency, community, and free access information is becoming increasingly fenced, opaque, and controlled by groups exploiting benevolently distributed data or rolling out AI algorithms without answering to affected communities or redistributing its riches. Public literacy about how models are built, by whom and with which values is essential for wider democratic deliberation with common good in mind. You need to know the rules of the game in order to affect them, and the museum can be used to raise consciousness around these issues whilst demonstrating the ongoing relevance of collections to address contemporary challenges. So here I'm asking you to imagine a museum visitor observing an art collection arranged chronologically. If all paintings followed a realism paradigm determined by aesthetic prediction, there would be no surprise, discomfort, or provocation. Everything would be so agreeable that nothing stands out or tells a compelling story. This plunges us into the machine's perspective. Predictive models are incapable of inventing new futures, not because they're bound by past data, just as humans are, but because their creativity is determined already by the engineer's uploaded taste parameter, whilst in human culture, taste changes. The machine knows no history nor memory, whilst heritage sites and institutions preserve and constitute it. This is the new relevance of museums, I would argue, decoding AI with human heritage, asserting human quality over machinic quantity.
Okay, thank you. So our next speaker, which is Suen Wang, I hope also I pronounce your name correctly, invites us to rethink how we experience cultural heritage in an increasingly interconnected and yet emotionally fragmented world. It is my pleasure to introduce Suen Wang, who will present From Disconnection to Reconnection, Cross-Cultural Communication and Cultural Heritage Studies through AI-based digital storytelling. An artist and researcher at the Royal College of Arts, Suen research sits at the crossroads of digital humanities, immersive media, and intercultural narrative design. Their work offers both a theoretical model for cross-cultural digital restitution and practical strategies for museums seeking to move beyond strategic, Eurocentric approaches towards more participatory, empathic, and culturally dialogue-sensitive storytelling. So, Suen, please, the floor is yours.
Yes. Sorry, may I ask how long I can present this?
You have a full presentation, so normally you have 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
And if you're cutting it close, I will interrupt you. Not so very diplomatic, but I will give you a small heads up.
Okay, I'm going to start. So, okay, hello everyone. My name is Suen Wang. I'm an independent researcher. And my background is in communication research from the Royal College of Art. I'm very excited to share my research for the AI and Heritage Digital World Conference today. And my research title is From Disconnection to Reconnection, Cross-Cultural Communication in Cultural Heritage Studies through AI-based digital storytelling. So about the research background, nowadays the cultural artifacts are used to remove from their original sites, such as ancient tombs, temples, or communities, and relocated to museums. And this displayed artifacts in the museum usually being presented through a academic or an historical classification, and it's going to result in the disconnection, loss of narrative, original ritual memory, and spiritual information. So, yeah. And about the related the research and the practices like storytelling or AR/VR experiences. For the storytelling part, they do the narrative audio visual storytelling or AI-generated videos to present the educational historical information. It's promote education meaning, but it's lack of the cultural sensitivity and significance. And for AR/VR practices, it reconstructed the digital twins of Egyptian tombs, like offering digital preservation, enhanced visitor experiences. However, it's for supporting the archaeological historical knowledges, not for the emotional sensory connections with cultural heritage original environments. So for the immersive exhibitions or AIGC-based exhibitions, like the multimedia exhibition of Han culture, this project, they use the 3D animation or spatial design to create an immersive spatial narrative space where people can feel the valuable culture within Asian relics. But it's less emphasis on the historical significance and emotional resonance with the original environments. And in Nora Jane Smith's work, The Emotional Heritage, she emphasizes the importance of emotional connections as the shaping personal experiences and the value of the heritages. The heritage is not a transmitting tangible objects, and it's a deeply personal and emotional process that embodies identity, belonging, and memory. So based on that research and practices, we can come up with questions like how can effective communication and emotional transmission as a central part in a cultural storytelling system, and promoting public understanding with interpretation of complex information, while also enabling emotional resolution, communication, and cultural dialogues. In what ways can AI be used across visual, audio, and creative dimensions, contribute to innovation digital storytelling? And how can a novel research framework that integrates immersive sensory experience and narrative design be developed to not only academic discourse, but also increase public awareness of cultural heritage preservation? So my research methodology, I adopt a practice-based research through ethnographic fieldwork, observation, contextual interview, and research through practices. The testing field at the VI Museum and the British Museum. The institutions, they offer general introduction, like the functions, historical, and the cultural information, like the object names, dates, and origins, a few information of the artifacts, transportation, history or restoration processes, or the contexts surrounding their downloading. Through contextual interviews with the museum staff, and in conversations with local citizens and tourists, the interesting sensory cultural information, but how to access such information is extremely limited, and they don't know how. So about the practice part, the vision, 3D, and animation part, I start to do the practice things to adapting. I used AI tools to transform artifacts images to 3D models and refine them in Blender and the Cinema 4D. Also, we're using Reality Composer, Snapchat in Studio, transform 3D models into AI environments, and on-site prototype testing was at a VIA Chinese gallery. And the prototype enhanced the visual environments and experiences by lack of the depth, storytelling content, and how to bridge the gap between the people and the artifacts is extremely limited. So like stage, I used the Scaniverse for 3D scanning. In Luma AI, to use the photos and the videos to capture the digital models, edited in MeshNet software. Apply Monte Carlo sampling, adjust the number of samples, control the point cloud quality, use the transfer texture to vertex color, ensure the surface qualities, like the tone, pattern, to map onto the practical system. And then import it into software touch designer, editing animated, enabling a transformation into immersive and animated visual scenes. And for voices and the songs text part, I used computer vision AI to analyze the historical descriptions of each objects, recording the voices, and they use the AI to resemble AI, redesign and adjust the voices, tone, and pitch, also with the emotion. Through the software Ivor to generate the background music, and using DeepSeek and ChatGPT to crafted the poetic storytelling lyrics based on the different artifacts, the information, stories, and the characters, personalities. And this is final outcome of the different objects, the artifacts I found in the museum, and to craft it and to redesign the vision and with the sounds and with the, I would say, to transform their stories information into another digital storytelling dimensions. So I want to show the demo videos of how it works to let people to better understand.
Let them gawk at my serene composure. This frown isn't wisdom, but calculation. Every night, counting cracks in gallery flooring, measuring how far to the loading dock. One inhale, Lucian's dewdrops. One exhale, Thames acid rain. What is returning when even rivers?
Keychains at gift shop. Sometimes I wonder if the mountain remembers the weight of being home. 23 generations of guards have aged before me. Their grandchildren now wheeled past by nurses.
9 generations of priestly hands, never dripping on hot festival sands. What good is a wish out? I count each lost particle. One wish less, one dream more. I am not artifact, not goddess, just female and breathing. When he sings old lullabies.
Some of us went west in crates, labeled fragile. Some stayed, became postcard faces. One brother I heard was used as an ashtray in Berlin. I tell myself, at least he's warm. Remember the crickets in the tomb. The Ming vase sighs. You talk too much. But what else is there to do? We are the dead who cannot die. Oh, gods of archaeology, you must keep me here.
They molded my lips to preach without sound. Yet no one kneels where my altar was ground. They dipped me in moonlight, that at last. A Hangzhou's green hills.
Be fierce. Brows like unsheathed blades. Her teacup clinked against my pedestal. Such exquisite barbaric strength. I counted every chime. If only I could tell them, this isn't anger. This is a vow cut mid-syllable by ship porns in the Thames fog. I reach for my brother's spear arm, grasp only humidifier mist. When the alarms fail, I am memorizing exit route, not for myself, but for the Ming vase whispering.
Yeah, and that's the whole practice demo video to transfer the information and store the content they want to show, they want to say. Yeah, and that's the whole references of this research and it's my presentation, and thank you very much for inviting
Thank
me.
you, Suwan. Sorry for cutting you short, but the presentation has been recorded, and make sure that all your acknowledgements will be there. So don't worry about that. So gladly invite my co-facilitator, Ms. Linda Neruba, to take some questions for our speakers. So Linda, I don't know if you're here, should be there. This kind of feels like oh, there you are, Linda.
Thank you so much, Hilke. I would like to say thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for being patient with us, and we're sorry for the few changes that happened. And as I can see, there are no questions yet for the first three speakers from the session one, but I have a few questions for Portia, Shabnam, and Peter, if they're online. Yeah, Shabnam, is she online?
Sorry, Shabnam is not online, I don't see.
Okay.
Peter
Then I'll
is.
just go.
He has
Okay.
just
I
unmuted.
hope Peter, I think I saw Uwera online as well. So
Yes, I'm
thank
online.
you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Peter, for sharing practical examples of your work with AI to restore cultural context. I have a question which I hope Portia can help to respond to as well. As you know that about the digital, given the digital divide and the varying levels of digital readiness in Africa. I just wanted to ask, how have you navigated through this while embracing AI for heritage work and community engagement in Nigeria, or for your case at the Olusegun Obasanjo Library?
Thank you, Linda. I would like us to know that Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, the permanent presidential exhibition was designed by Ralph Happebaum Associates, based in US, with offices in London, Benin, and other countries. And they have the best experts in technology, digital technology, who have helped us to install some of these gadgets system at OOPL. One of the subcontractor is Aziona, based in Madrid, and they trained some of our staff on how to, most especially the IT and the facility management department, on how to go about some of this digital technology. So the music climate is a simple AI assisted environmental monitoring system designed for our museum, gallery and storage rooms at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library. So it is important to clarify that the music climate is currently a prototype and not a commercial product. So what we've been doing is we try to use buy some sensors, compact sensors, similar to affordable data loggers, to measure temperature and relative humidity and light level. So the machine is very small and is learning algorithms, trained on past environmental data, and it predicts fluctuation. So we have a crop of professionals at OOPL who are digitally inclined and do this for us in collaboration with the museum and archive department. So that's how we achieve this. And I believe if other museums in Africa can collaborate, and we can achieve this. But thank you.
Power of collaboration. Thank you so much, Peter. Portia, would you like to add on?
Yes, I'll give an experience from how we archive the women's stories. We go from different communities on how to collect this information for them. Like when we were carrying out our research on Queen Yabinji from Western Uganda, we went to the Chichiga communities in in Western Uganda, Kabale and Kanungu specifically, to which he originated and spoke to elders directly. I found it much more effective to give ownership to the people from whom we collect these stories from, to not only credit them, not to give them only as a data source, but also credit them for what they have contributed to us in keeping this data. So one of the structures we do for our interpretation of these stories into short animations with AI is we like to keep give them the credit that they do deserve, and then also at the same time keep it as close to the historical retelling without enhancing it too far that it loses meaning. So one of our guiding principles is to remain with the ownership for the community by crediting them the right way, and then also not veering too far off with our imaginations and keeping it as close to possible, but then also coming back to engage the community, because like you said, there's a huge digital divide between what's within Kampala city and then what goes on with the western part of the country. So we try our best to make sure that not only the screens that we have here of our reimagined tellings of these women's lives, we also ensure to have community engagements there within those areas of origin, so that community is able to see what has now become a part of their heritage. They're able to view it, and they're able to know that it has turned from this oral form into a visual. So we like to keep it as community-centered as possible, to take that information back to the community, the elders see it, and then also to credit them the right way.
Sure. And when you go back, you gain the trust of the community. Thank you so much, Peter and Portia. I'll hand over to Hilke.
Hey, thank you, Linda. I have a question for all of our speakers, but perhaps Sami will feel most at ease to answer this because it was a question inspired by his talk. So there are actually quite a lot of unresolved questions about attribution, intellectual property, and how also royalties should be distributed to the creators. And the cultural communities whose works or traditions inform our AI systems. Currently, there are no widespread nor consistent industry-wide protocols. So how can we as a cultural heritage sector help develop some shared principles or even shared infrastructures, perhaps, that both protect the original creators and ensure that AI is used in ways that will enhance our cultural understanding, rather than reinforcing inequality or perhaps leading to misinterpretation?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. And can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, all good? Yeah. Yeah, that's very much the million-dollar question at the moment in the sector. So as a quick answer, the big issue that creators face, be it museums or artists who are putting images online, is that they get scraped in mass into training data sets. And the reason why those images can be used to train large models that are publicly available and that can be monetized at the moment is because those data sets are used for university research. So there's this thing about fair use of data for research, and private companies kind of exploit this loophole because they do not own the data set itself, thus they cannot be sued for it. So that's one of the key issues that's at play. And the major issue is that there's no international consensus on copyright. So copyright is kind of like a state nation thing. So it's very difficult to get like an international consensus on this because, you know, creators come from all over the world. So there's efforts to sue various companies and various research organizations. But what we're observing is that those lawsuits usually don't end up being beneficial to artists and intellectual property holders. So yeah, that's the battle that I'm kind of leaving aside for the lawyers in the room with us. What I think what can be done by museums today, I think there's three things that are in the pipeline currently. So the first is, how can we think about heritage institutions and museums to create collective bargaining power? How do we unionize, basically, in the face of this development? And one way is what's called a data trust. And a data trust is currently a model that's being developed by researchers, including Sylvia Lacroix at King's College in London, which is basically a way for institutions to come together, pool their data so that there's a central steward legal entity that manages the data for us. And what this entity enables us to do is to sell the data forward, basically. So we offer high quality data as a group, as a service to universities or businesses that want to use our data. And that means that, we offer something, there's something really appealing, high quality heritage data with really good metadata attached. But we also have leverage in the sense that we can decide on whether we give access or not, whether the use that's being done with it is the right one or not. So that's kind of the market-based solution, really, is for museums and heritage institutions to become actors as producers of data and managers of that data. And the second one I'm very briefly going to say is technical protocols and barriers. So it's how do you prevent your data that you're putting online from being used for training? And the technical possibilities are there. So there's a technique called glazing and night shading, which have been developed by University of Chicago. And those enable, I can do it on my laptop. You can basically put benign pixels into your photographs, your digital photographs that are invisible to the human eye. But if they get ingested into a training data set, the machine visions get really confused and cannot actually process the image anymore. So there's this methods of how do you want to deal with it. Is one way is protecting the assets that you have, and that's a really good thing. But the second thing is how do you affect the actual development of the technologies, and that's where the data trust come in, and I think that's the way forward, really. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Sue-Ann, perhaps as you are using data to create actually art yourself and artificial intelligence, perhaps you also would like to comment on that briefly?
Yeah. I think for copyrights, use the heritage data or related data to transfer into digital storytelling, some artistic expression. It's based on, I think AI tool is a tool. It's not like something you just use it, transfer something, and then it can be selling or for benefits for commercial stuff. It's like because we are artists, we just when we want to decode, we have a shovel. So it's like something like a tool. It's so AI tool. I think it's not something I just use it. So everything is belong to money or something about that. I think it's all about mindset. It's about how you transfer the data, use the things you have, and to form something artistic, maybe digital art or physical sculptures or anything it could be. So for copyright, I think that's answers I have.
Thank you, Sue-Ann. And like what's being highlighted once again is AI is very powerful. It is a tool, like a pencil that artists can use. I think this session really demonstrated the potential of artificial intelligence in cultural heritage. But ultimately, it also highlighted the need for culturally sensitive, community-driven and responsible approaches to integrating artificial intelligence. And this is actually also one of the questions that will form the core of our next panel that will be hosted by Celine and Tatenda. And to introduce this session, I'm happy to give the floor to Aparna.
Okay. So I was gonna act to say it very quickly because I know that everyone is waiting patiently for the next panel. We move now. I thank Hilke and Linda and sincerely thank all the speakers for these insightful and thought-provoking presentations. We will now move directly into our next session and the panel discussion, which is AI Heritage and Us, Co-Creating Digital Futures. This panel will be moderated by Céline Nugent from Oxford Brookes University and Tatenda from an AI of our own, AAOO, an organization. And it will feature contributions from different speakers. They will be introduced by the session leaders. Céline and Tatenda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Aparna. And hello, everyone, and welcome to our session, AI Heritage and Us, Co-Creating Digital Futures. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really honored to have the opportunity to discuss a topic that is a passion for us, but also timely and deeply important for the future of heritage work. My co-moderator Tatenda and I will start off with some opening remarks and set the tone, and then we will welcome our panel, Mutanu Kianya, and Dr. Kristen Hopper was going to join us, but unfortunately couldn't make it due to being in a different time zone and the delay not working. So we'll have a three-way conversation, but we also invite the audience to join us in questions in the chat or unmute and join us. And we'll reserve time at the end specifically to share your comments and questions with the panel. But given that we're a bit more informal now, you can also kind of chip in as well with your thoughts. So my name is Céline Nugent. I'm an associate professor of digital heritage and deputy director of the Center for AI Culture and Society at Oxford Brookes University in the UK. Tatenda is my co-moderator. Please also introduce yourself, Tatenda.
Thank you so much, Celine. My name is Tatenda Tavingai. I'm from Zimbabwe, but I'm also an AI of our own project coordinator. Currently, I'm in New Zealand, so it's morning for me. Looking forward to this amazing session.
Great, thank you so much. So this panel came together in a really interesting way. So Tatenda and I didn't know each other at the beginning and had each submitted proposals to the conference independently. His work focuses on community-centered frameworks for decolonizing AI in the global South. And my own submission examined the need for ethical guardrails and participatory engagement in archaeological computing, and thinking of kind of broader risks of AI introduced in heritage practice. The conference organizers sensed a synergy between our two themes, and then they introduced us, and they noticed that we're approaching from different angles something of a shared question. That is, how do we design digital futures of heritage in a way that centers communities, addresses structural inequalities, and takes responsibility for the social impacts of computing technologies? As this conference has been reminding us, AI is no longer a speculative technology in heritage. It's being used for a growing range of applications that are being discussed this week. And these tools contribute to shaping what counts as valuable knowledge, what is preserved, and who gets to participate in the process. We also know that AI is not neutral. It carries forward the assumptions, biases, and power dynamics of the context in which it's built. So when we apply AI to heritage without careful reflection, we risk reproducing extractive practices that heritage professionals and researchers have spent decades trying to confront. For example, biased training data can distort how the past is represented. We are, after all, dealing with models of the real world and not reality. Automated monitoring systems can also produce feelings of surveillance in communities who are already navigating political sensitivities, questions of land rights, and long histories of external control. So we would argue that participatory design is an essential part of this need for careful reflection. It's a methodological choice that opens a path to redistributing authority through digital tools, ensuring that communities are consulted, but also shaping the technologies and the narratives that emerge from them. So the goal of participatory approaches, therefore, is to support transparency, challenge Western-centric assumptions embedded in data and algorithms, and create space for local agency, context-specific priorities, and mutual learning. So one of our key aspirations with this panel is to kind of get theoretical, but also to ground the subject in the tangible with accessible stories and contexts. So I want to briefly share an example from my ongoing work as an archaeologist working with the Bat Archaeological Project at the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Bat in Oman. There we have been exploring what participatory design looks like in practice for an archaeological digital heritage project. Together with residents, we have been designing community-centered digital heritage workflows for machine learning-based risk monitoring systems. And this encompasses training in digital documentation, so capacity building, co-design data representations enriched with local storytelling, and open ongoing dialogue about changing attitudes toward digital heritage practice. And just to give you a couple of examples of this, one of my most important insights from this research was seeing how strongly people cared about the visibility of their land when we began considering predictive analysis of remote sensing data. So for some, the analysis of landscape imagery raised serious concerns about external oversight, potential land claims, or the sense that their daily lives are becoming exposed to the unknown remote tech actors who were not part of the familiar archaeological team who were permitted to be there by the government. So their views touched on critical issues, governance, trust, and having control over how data is circulated. On a lighter note, another conversation with a mother reminded me that our motivations in developing these new digital applications doesn't always match the needs and expectations on the ground. So when I mentioned that digital models for documenting monumental Bronze Age tombs would be useful for encouraging health and safety of visitors, she replied that they would also help local children actually explore ancient architecture whilst avoiding the jinn, who all the kids thought lived inside the tomb chambers. It was an angle I certainly had never considered before, but it informed my practice moving forward. So sharing experiences like these show how communities interpret, negotiate, and sometimes resist new technological systems in ways that are both practical and deeply rooted in local worldviews. They open up opportunity for a much broader dialogue if we are willing to actively initiate and engage in that dialogue. So at this point, I'll transition over to Tatenda, who also shared his introductory reflections. Tatenda, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Celine, for this insightful icebreaker. So for me, I would start by saying, we need to understand what AI is and what AI is not. And in this regards, in the context of an AI of our own, we are more trying to ensure that we make a representation of the global South, understanding that AI is a Western technology, and it is built upon Western frameworks. And within these Western frameworks, it brings in a lot of biases, algorithmic biases, but also at the same time, there's a huge rate of misrepresentations in terms of the data that we can generate from these current AI models. So within the Global South context, we understand that we need to work with the communities, and these communities are the ones that should direct the directions towards with which AI development can take. So I'll tell you that it's not only about cultural heritage, but it's within the broader framework of AI. Within the broader framework of AI ethics, data governance, these are key components that if we are to build AI that is human-centric, it's something that we need to work with the communities. These are the users of these tools. And for quite a long period, the Global South have been seen as only users or receiving of these technologies, and their participation in the development of these technologies has not been considered. So I'll give an example of the language models, where we have got the low resource and the high resource languages. And with the high resource languages, we are talking of Western languages, and the low resource being the Global South and the non-Western languages. Already we are creating the disparities where we are not representing the Global South populations in the technological innovation or technological advancement. So as an AI of our own, we came together and we decided to find some ways and methodologies in which we can include and involve communities throughout the process of developing AI. So I'll just tell you that it's not about reaching to an answer or about coming up with a model, but it's about understanding the process of how AI comes to different conclusions that we can see. So that being said, we have been working in South Africa with some communities, the Xhosa communities, and also we've been working in Cambodia, trying to understand, their perspectives about AI, because then it's a technology that is new to them, but also what are their perspectives? How do they view AI in line with cultural heritage preservation? So in South Africa, we're more focusing on the indigenous knowledge systems related to plant use. So one of the critical elements that we identified in South Africa, for example, coming from the communities, is that the current generation of youth are not interested in listening to their elders. So which means there is a huge knowledge gap that is existing. So that's why we felt that AI can bridge that gap, where we talk of human to human. Now it's more like machine to human. So it's not like we are saying AI is going to replace the humans, but AI comes in as a tool that can help us to preserve cultural heritage, but also that can help us to transmit cultural heritage from one generation to the other. So that's the same also we did in Cambodia, and our focus was mainly on two art forms, that is the ikat weaving technique and the Buddhist smut. And the idea is also to co-design, co-create with the communities, understanding the community needs, for us to come up with the technology that is favorable of the community, but also that is community-centric. So these are the key studies that we've been working on and as part of our pilot. But I'll just try to highlight the key elements that we identified within these researches. And number one is on data governance and sovereignty, where communities are so worried about how their data is being used and where their data is being taken to. So if you look from a historical perspective, we are having extractivism research where people have been extracting data from the communities. And those same communities do not even know where their data is being put. They do not even know how their data is being used. So that being said, these are the key elements that we are trying also to address, looking at how can we ensure that we look at community data centers that serve the community, but also that allow the community to understand how their data is being used. So I'll just maybe cut it short so that we can jump deeper into our panel as we discuss more about these elements. So I'll give it back to you, Celine. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tatenda. So we're already having kind of a around the world tour of this subject, and I'm really delighted to introduce our first or only panelist now, Mutanu Kianya. Thank you so much for waiting with us. It's so nice to meet you in person or online, but Mutanya is the head of programs and outreach at African Digital Heritage in Nairobi. Mutanya, perhaps you could introduce yourself in your own words and share what interests you on the subject of co-creating digital heritage and digital futures? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to join you in this very interesting topic that is dear to my heart. My name is Mutanu Chania. I am the Director of Programs at African Digital Heritage. So African Digital Heritage we are based in Nairobi, but we work across Africa and the Afro diaspora. We work at the intersection of tech, of culture, of history. But our greatest belief is that the digital tools are not just to help us build a possible future, but they're also giving us a chance to question and to redocument the past. So here, using the digital as this bridge between the past, the present, and the future. Yeah, and yeah, really looking forward to getting into the nitty-gritties of this.
Thank you so much. So I guess we should all unmute now, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat for any questions. I see some already. We have one question going. I'll have some introductory questions to get the conversation flowing, and then we'll see how it goes. So to start, can you share a moment, perhaps both of you, of a moment when a community challenged your assumptions about what is good practice in digital heritage with AI, and what changed as a result?
Okay, I think in my case, the most challenging part was in South Africa, and also partly in Cambodia, where communities used to challenge, these digital tools and what they mean to them. And I tell you, we might think that the community do not know, but they know. And what I'm saying is that with the communities, they've seen how digital technologies for the past have been exploiting them. And they feel so like alienated. And these are the key critical questions that they always have in their mind as to how is this technology saving us and what is it going to help us to achieve in terms not only of cultural heritage but their day-to-day lives. So yes, we had a lot of confrontations in that regards, but also in regards to the fact of how does this technology come up with certain decisions or certain answers that they can give. That is what we call the AI black box phenomenon. So yes, they do not know it within the context of AI black box phenomenon, but these are the questions that they have, like how is it coming to this conclusion? And what is happening to my data that has allowed this technology to bring a certain type of conclusion? So, these are the questions that we have been having from the communities, and also the questions as to how is this technology going to save me as a community member, as a 50-year-old person? How is it going to help me to ensure that my cultural heritage is not distorted, but also my views are represented within this algorithmic scheme? So this is quite an interesting part. And I think Mutanu can also agree with me, being from Africa. I think we have been facing more or less the same challenges. I do understand that for you, Mutanu, it's more like you are more, interested in understanding, how communities come into play in the development of these technologies, but also understanding the role of communities in shaping what we call these technological tools. So maybe you can highlight on that also.
Yeah, I think one of the assumptions that we had about what a good digital heritage practice is we digitize now, and then we'll get to think about the legal frameworks of what is happening after. Okay, so because in a majority of the African countries or sub-Saharan African countries, we are still developing our digital law frameworks that would protect communities. But then we got into the situation where, as Tatenda insinuated before, the way we shared our practice, our traditions, our stories as communities was very much through oral tradition. And so we got to a place where we were wanting to document this because we were afraid that a lot of this would die with the old people. But then they said, okay, hold up, we are the old people now, but you were once young a few years ago. And this thing that you want us to put in this digital platform that you speak about, we are not that comfortable with it. So it gave us a chance to kind of take a pause and ask, what does access look like? And even if we are saying, okay, digitize now, and then kind of put curtails on who gets access to what, then there's also the access for, I just do not want my story to live on the digital, and I'll continue with like your oral traditions of passing this generation down. Yeah, and I think it's a really beautiful way to consider and to ask from all of us when we go to the field.
This is very interesting because I have a kind of a similar experience from working in Oman as well, where we had a huge, before I started on the project, we had a huge pushback on the use of survey drones by the archaeologists, and to the point that there was a huge conflict with one of the people living on the site about using data and monitoring land. And that completely changed how my kind of co-director decided to engage with the community in terms of she went right back to the starting point. It's like, okay, we're going to stop all the work we're doing and reconsider what exactly it is that we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. Like, where do we leave gaps for people to just continue without this kind of being present in their lives? I think I think I've heard this theme come up a few times of like, what do we not do? Where do we put our boundaries in place, and being aware of when to move or when to stop has come up a few times today.
Yeah, I think you've just reminded me of something where, for example, there was a community that I approached in South Africa, and they do not like to be taken pictures of. Yes, they were so keen to be interviewed, but did not like their pictures to be taken. So it's one of those key areas where you have again to come back again and sit with the communities, redesign the research framework, redesign the data collection framework with the community, where it doesn't have to be you coming to the community and dictate what you want them to do for you. It's more like a co-creation aspect. And I think this is part of the areas that we've been missing for quite a long, where we just come, we have got our own frameworks, and we just push our own frameworks and agendas without understanding what the community needs are. So yeah.
And so that kind of leads me on to the next question I had in mind, which was, have you ever decided to not use a particular technology or approach on ethical grounds? And what led to that decision?
Yes, I'll go first. Okay, not a technology, but let me get into the nitty-gritties of it. As Tatenda said, a lot of sub-Saharan Africa, whoever has the money then gets to control what happens with the data, right? So one of the things that I think one of the spaces that we have kind of not been involved with is looking at the copyright or the legal implications of having to apply for this. Because unfortunately, most of the calls out there that are calling people, especially community members, to add their data onto these models or to take up this money, they are following the same level of extraction that happened at the start of the 19th century when the scramble and partition of Africa was happening, where people were just taking, and then the holders of these knowledges are just they're the tools who get to give. And so one of the questions that communities usually write to us is to ask, what frameworks can we use to be able to say, okay, this was given by XYZ? And how do we ensure that we protect ourselves? It's not just looking like extraction, but we are seen as the knowledge holders, are the people who are like, I want to call it patient zero, but the people who everyone should go for this knowledge and not this technology, really. And how are we able to also acknowledge the contributions to these LLMs and to these AI models? Because unfortunately, most of these calls just look like, okay, we're going to give you money for you to give us your knowledge, and then that's it. Bye.
I think there's a very relevant question in here, and it's addressed to you, Tatenda, as well. So I'll just read it aloud. It's from Dr. Atunjenla. This is the same case that's happening in our community. Yes, your idea of using AI to to human as a way to preserve the heritage. However, younger generation, in spite access to AI tools to understand the culture, younger generation shows very less interest. So could you give some suggestion to let younger generation keep engaging in the preservation? Our heritage is actually dying and soft power culture is replacing our culture.
Yeah, I think, understanding the community needs, that's the first thing, but also understanding what is at our disposal, what is at the disposal of the youth. And I think that brings me to the question of why AI of all the other digital tools. So, the reason why we're looking at AI is because, number one, it's a tool that is now popularly being used by a lot of youth, and not only like the older youth, but even the youngest youth. They are now getting engaged into these AI tools, and this rampant deployment of these tools has made them more accessible. So I'll give an example. Part of our work in Cambodia, we did some user-based assessments to understand, the to understand the I would say the use of AI within communities. And we interviewed one 40-year-old lady, and the way she knows AI is so top notch, like the way she knows how to use AI. But here's the challenge: she doesn't know the different tools, like to say this is ChatGPT. She only knows that I use this tool for ABC without knowing that this is AI. So I think looking at what is in the mainstream and taking advantage of it is the way to go. So I've highlighted that before. There was one old elder community member who suggested that, and he was lamenting that youth are no longer getting knowledge from us. And he was so happy that we are trying to document this knowledge and putting it out there using digital tools and AI. He was so excited about it. So this is, the way to go. It's not like we should wait until it's too late. As the world moves, we should also move by the changes so that we attract, huge groups of people. And also within attracting huge groups of people, that's how we preserve and conserve for future generations.
I'd like to say something about that, but on the contrary, from what we've seen from our audiences and the people that we've interacted with, there's like a cultural consciousness shift in the youth in sub-Saharan Africa, where we are seeing a lot of them going into the histories, questioning histories, trying to do the little that they can to, inject stories about that are real, because as we know, history wasn't written to promote or to clap for people in sub-Saharan Africa. So we are seeing a cultural shift in the youth. And I say this all the time when I'm doing my teachings. If the youth's first point of interacting or searching is the internet, then it's up to us cultural curators to ensure that what we put on the internet is, one, factual, is truthful, and it is reflective of them. And it is only in this way where we can continue pulling other audiences for them to be able to, express interest in our own histories. And if we, again, coming back to AI and the trolling on the internet, if the data that you're feeding the digital models are truthful and are factual, then we get to see an AI that is representative, that is reflective of the very people whose stories we want to tell.
Thank you. So I'm tempted to touch into the angle of practicalities, inspired by Marvin Tejeda's question about heritage impact assessment. So thinking about like practical tools for doing participatory work, but also I'd love us to start considering maybe the financial aspect. How do we fund this type of work? It's kind of the elephant in the room because it's not traditionally part of kind of big academic funding schemes, from my experience. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences on this.
So maybe I can give it to Mutani first. Then yeah.
I'm like, Tatenda, do you want to go first? I have not received any money for AI yet. But but how we ensure that, sorry, what was your first question?
So I was thinking about the practicalities. So what tools can we use to actually do this work? And then and how do we like support those tools with funding? Where do we seek that funding? So you can touch on this, the practical aspects, if you don't want to touch on the financial one.
I think for us is what tools? Does it have to be technological tools? For us, every project is designed based on the needs of the project. So one of the things that you ensure to do is to use the community, but also invite other cultural curators and experts in the fields to kind of contribute to the thoughts of how the project would go. And I think for us, I want to call it a co-creation model and a research-based first model that has guided our practice at African Digital Heritage.
Yeah, so I think for us is an AI of our own. The first approach is to go back to what actually inspired our project. And what actually inspired our project is to address the bias in the algorithm. So we are not trying to do it in a reactionary way where we say communities are not represented, so we just go to the communities alone. We are also trying to engage different stakeholders, be it in academia, outside of academia, and the professionals, so that we come up with, a well-representative data set that represents the needs of the community, but also that represents the ideas of those outside of the community within the same space, within the Global South context. So, of course, there are quite some tools that we've been using, technological tools for data collection, such as, for example, EpiCollect 5, which is a tool that we have been using to collect data with the community. And I would say one thing that I loved that approach is it allowed us also to assess, how technologically aware the communities are using those tools, but also to assess, and it allows us to, try to find a way in which we can try to build our own tools for data collection, our own tools that also resonate and reflect with the communities. So if you look at it right now, most of the tools are just English, which is a high resource language, and they do not represent other languages, which means even if you're collecting the data, somehow there is a bias because there is a lot of things that lost in translation. So these aspects of cultural nuances, these are the key things that we are trying also to capture, as we go forward. But one critical point is if we want to produce something that is Global South centric, we also need to use the tools that reflect the same communities that we are going to be working with. So yes, it's not only about deploying a tool that conserve or that educate about cultural heritage, but also producing something that can help us to research and collect data within the framework of the community understanding that represent the same communities. So yeah.
And do you feel there's scope for making these projects sustainable and able to give back to the community in a long-term fashion? What do you think that would look like?
Well, I think for the long-term aspects, in our case, we are not just trying to develop, for example, tools for the sake of producing, but we're trying to make sure that in whatever that we do, it has to have community ownership. So the same communities that we're working with, they should have that ownership share in whatever that we are producing. But again, it goes back to our futuristic goals. And these are some of the lessons that also I'm drawing from New Zealand, where there is an element of data sovereignty, where communities are having their own community data centers. So it's a very, very critical point from a climate sensitivity perspective, but also from a data governance sensitivity perspective and ethical perspective, where with small community data centers, it means we are likely going to reduce the carbon footprint, but at the same time, we are likely going to ensure that those same communities that are going to be trained as data stewards, that are going to be working within those data centers, they have a clear understanding of how their data is being used, how their data is being processed. So in a way, it's a strategy to ensure that there is that community trust, because I'll tell you that there is a bit of lack of community trust in these technologies, so we need to ensure that communities are well involved in these areas.
I think something else that will help us get to sustainability is leading our projects or designing our projects with a lot of care and leaning on each other depending on leaning on each other depending on what our interests are and what our qualifications are, because as technology has always been this field that is guided by numbers, by the amount of money that it will get. So in its very nature, it's extractive. And if you want to have a community-based approach that is community-informed, community-led, then it's up to the curators of the project to ensure that, one, even as they're carrying out projects, they're not shying away from experimentation, and they're not shying away from documenting the process, just so we are not stuck in the same hole of everyone making the same mistake, and we can learn from each other's mistake. But also in the case that someone designs something that would finally answer this community-centered approach in the mix of the capitalistic world, then all of us can be able to use that as heurism and be able to copy aspects of it that might fit our realities.
Thank you. Those are really powerful answers. I see Aparna has a hand up. Do you have a question, Aparna?
Yes, I have for all three of you. And actually, I tried to put it in the chat. And for me, I think one of the important considerations, and I am asking you how you have dealt with this in your work, how to avoid commodification of culture and heritage when you're dealing with AI-enabled, digital tools and, working with communities, especially performance culture, like not turning already many of the World Heritage Sites, wherever we visit, we see a lot of that performance culture. So how do you avoid that?
Okay, thank you so much, Aparna. So I think our strategy is an area of our own. It comes back from the development of the technological tools. So not at the end, but from the starting process, where we are trying to make sure that, number one, we make sure that our data is secure. So for example, we have the sacred labels, where we agree with the community which data has to go out and which data doesn't have to go out. But again, the commodification in terms of artificial intelligence comes with the data sets, where data sets can now be used as goods that can be sold. So in our case, our data sets, we try to make sure that they are private, but also they are community honored, or under community ownership. That's why we are more also pushing on the idea of having these community data centers, so that the same community can have that active control of their data and they know who has access to their data and who doesn't have access to their data. So I'll just talk of this futuristic aspect of blockchain technology, for example, where you are encrypting your data. So what it means is that what goes out to the cloud is not the actual data, but it's an encrypted code. So the real data remains within the community sender. So one way to go about it is to look at decentralized compute system. So what it means is that with the decentralized compute system, you are more working on a local cloud, on a local server, which doesn't allow that same data to live into the cloud of this big tech, because now data is it's a commodity for big tech. So this is a way of trying to, to address this, but starting from a small, because if you start bigger and overambitious, it's very, very imperative that you're likely going to lose it. So yeah, that's our approach.
And to build on that, we also add the additional approach in addition to capacity training on digital skills. We also do capacity training on legal understanding of copyright and ownership, especially for like children and young people who may not may not have access to that information until much later in life. It's communicating those rights and that they're entitled to, so that they can make those decisions in a more informed way, and making that information accessible as part of the key approach on the ground the moment we start.
Yeah. In addition to the capacity building, especially on digital rights and being the internet, one of the ways that we are protecting communities, and I hope that we are, or we are trying to push governments to hurry up with the laws that should protect their own people. Because if there is no law coming to that protects its people, then it looks like a free-for-all space. And I think that's why a majority of the people of the organizations are running towards spaces that do not have clear set digital heritage, AI, cultural heritage laws.
Yeah, I think I also want to run down through an unpopular opinion, especially with developers. One way also to go about it is to look at the community governance structure. So with cultural heritage and each community, they've got their own governance structure. And it's so sad that for quite some time, we've never tried to look at those governance structure in terms of their knowledge systems, in terms of how they keep their knowledge and how they preserve their knowledge. So I would say that could also be the first way to go about it. Look at the governance structure, but also embed those governance structure in the AI tools. So you know within the community who has access, who has control, and all those things. So yeah, it's not only in cultural heritage, but it's within the broader framework of AI, you know.
Thank you all. I think now we're at time.
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining on the panel. Thank you everyone for listening and for your questions and comments. They're fantastic. And I'll give it back to you, Aparna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Celine, and to all Tatenda and Mutanus. Thank you for this wonderful discussion and bringing it all together at the end. What a rich day we've had from our first keynote from Frederick on understanding what AI is good for, not focusing on the back end, but looking at what relationships AI can help us forge and foster, so that we can understand meanings behind heritage and create new meanings. Then we had Rafiq, who gave us a whole new perspective about how buildings have been living and bringing that out in form of art, all that data, and how buildings are breathing, living, and heritage telling its own story. And then to your panel, where you bringing it all together. Before that, also Hilke and Linda, their panel was exceptional. And again, we have learned that community cannot be seen as mere data sources. They are co-creators, knowledge holders, right holders. And the best way, as Tatenda said, is to co-create every step of the way, informed consent, iterative consent, and also developing ways in which we can have community-owned data and finding new ways of working with data storage at the level of communities. So with all that, we close today's sessions, and tomorrow is another day when we have exciting and insightful talks, panels scheduled. We hope to see you tomorrow. So stay tuned and join us back. Thank you so much.